I looked for death. I got base duty the first day I got out. One of the older guys came over to me. Hey, grab the bolt cutters. And I'm like, we're gonna go on a raid. Yes. Ride with me. We're going to go do a favor for the forensic service people. I had to cut somebody down off a bridge that was hung overnight. Go up there, there's a flatbed and the body flops on there. People are watching. There's a taco stand across the way. They're eating. I was horrified by what I was seeing. And I said, who can possibly be as evil and as horrible to do this to somebody? The older guy could see it in his eyes. And he said, Ed, you're stupid. They were kind to him. I was like, what? What do you mean they're kind to him? At least his family has a body to cry over and bury. This is kindness. The body is a gift. I realized how fucked of a place that I was in, where a mutilated, tortured body hung from a bridge was kindness. I could still smell it. And I remember the realization that I was seeking freedom and I found myself in hell. I apparently don't know when to drink water. I forget to eat.
Oh, yeah.
I forget that cold is real.
We got to strengthen your mind-body connection, my boy.
Well, it's funny what happens to your mind and body when you go through horrible shit. You know?
Yeah.
They kind of let me go into my happy place, and that means like my ghost is gone usually.
Yeah, disassociation.
Yeah,
now
trauma.
we're talking. Yeah, that feels good, right?
Trauma and all that shit, you know. But now, you know, I'm trying to slowly. My therapist. I've been through 2 years of therapy. My therapist says, "Oh, your ghost is back into the machine a little bit. You need a little bit of that. You know,
gotta have the ghost in the machine.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. And 2 years of therapy.
Yeah.
Has it been good?
Amazing.
Really, you're enjoying it?
I was a horrible drunk 3 years ago, and I don't drink anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the alcohol offered a little bit of disconnection.
That's insane. I was drunk every third day.
Wow. And then feeling terrible the next day.
Yeah, which is at least feeling something.
Wow. That's heavy. That's heavy.
Yeah.
We can get into all of this. You have a fascinating life working in counter-narcotics, state police in Tijuana, everything. But I just want to start all the way at the very beginning.
Sure.
You grew up in Tijuana.
Yeah.
Born there.
Born there. So Tijuana is weird. It's a city of immigrants. Like we have people from all over, basically that are trying to make it to the U.S. And some of them don't, or some of them do make it to the U.S., but they make a mistake of some sort, and they get kicked out. So they end up in Tijuana. Mm-hmm. It's like for some it's a purgatory, but for others it's like a home and an opportunity. When I was growing up, they would ask like, "Who's from Tijuana?" You know, and it was rare for people to raise their hands. But I was born in Tijuana. I was born in downtown Tijuana on 7th Street at the Hospital de León on the 21st of August in 1982.
Okay. And a lot of people I feel like don't realize, at least I didn't realize, Tijuana is a city in Mexico, but it's also kind of a city in America.
Yes.
It is so close to the border, and the nature of that city in San Diego is there's a lot of, you know, commerce and traffic going back and forth constantly.
And also blood and families. People marrying an American and then spending Christmases in Tijuana instead of the U.S. because Christmases and holidays are always better in Mexico, right? The parties go on for days. The cops won't show up if you have a mariachi band playing at 5 a.m. at your house. Unless they do, they'll probably join in. Or, you know,
they'll show up if you're not playing mariachi. Yeah. They're like, what are you guys doing?
It's a dangerous freedom, but it's a freedom there. And I think a lot of Americans that go down to Baja and experience that can get to see that. It is insanely interconnected, like even right now more so. Because there's a lot of Americans living down there. We have this joke that we call Tijuana, San Diego South now, you know. But it is very interconnected. Our TV channels, when I was growing up, I had 1 Spanish channel and 4 English channels growing up. So a lot of my English comes from watching Mr. Rogers on KPBS growing up.
Oh, wow.
Or watching Sesame Street growing up and learning how to comprehend English. Maybe not speak it as well as I do now, but at least most of the people from Tijuana that grew up in that time would watch American TV, and we were very Americanized, more so than other parts of the country because we had that access.
It's an extremely transient city.
Yeah.
And what did your parents do?
My dad ran a business for his whole life. He's kind of retired now. Electrical light post. Transformer boxes, that was the family business, basically, the electrical engineering stuff.
That's cool.
And he is part of my whole family is kind of that, they're all electrical engineers. That's the industry that they go into. Most of my cousins are that. I'm the only weirdo.
And then what did your mom do?
My mom was a nurse growing up, so she was, she was a badass of the family. My dad is cool and he's great. He's amazing. But my mom was like the ninja.
What kind of nursing did she do?
She worked at a hospital for a long while. And after that, she had some kids with my dad, had me. Things changed. So she had to stay at home. But she always kept that. Like in Tijuana and Mexico in general, people don't go to the doctor ever. Mm-hmm. And if you know a nurse or if you know somebody, you'll go to their house, So we got a lot of knocks at night on the door. From people that, hey, can your mom inject me? Sure. Then my mom would go. I would hold the flashlight for her for some stuff that she would do to the people. Like, hey, I don't want to take my stitches out because I can't afford the hospital. So I would go with my mom and do some of that stuff around the community.
Oh, wow.
I think that's who influenced me the most as far as that whole being somebody that knew stuff that could be useful to the community.
that example of benevolence of hey, this person knows things that everyone needs that helps everyone.
Yeah.
And people are coming to them frequently and is always willing to give up of themselves to help the group.
Yeah, so she taught me the power of responsibility. Like, hey, you know something? Yeah, well, it means now that you have to use it for others.
Yeah, you can't keep it.
No, it's not for you. So you have to, just the fact that everybody knew her, and even to this day, she's been gone for almost 8 years now. And to this day, people ask me like, hey, you're Elvia's kid. Like, yeah, I'm Elvia's kid. I've done a lot of shit myself, but I'm still, at least in the place where I grew up, I'm still her son.
Oh, that's really cool. And obviously the place you were living, Tijuana at the time specifically, was very violent. So a lot of dangerous activity happening in different parts of TJ.
Growing up, I was born in the 80s, and it was not that bad.
Oh, really?
Not that bad. I got to see Tijuana when it was still border town, known for its rowdy nightlife, but mostly for Americans. But if you lived in Tijuana, you would enjoy walking, and there was not shady stuff would happen, but not that in the open.
But cartel activity didn't take over.
No, not in the 80s. Like mid 90s, you started seeing it now in the streets. You started seeing a cartel in the form of the Arellano Felix cartel, which was a family of cartel people that basically started coming up in power in Tijuana. They were part of a federation of other cartels that are across the country, but they had access to one of the largest drug markets on the planet by being in control of the Tijuana border. So,
of course.
And that gave them insane amounts of power. I got to see the growth of that in my hometown. Mm-hmm. I saw it first through my brother. My middle brother Eric, who passed away when I was young. He was a Chalino Sanchez fan.
What is Chalino Sanchez?
Chalino Sanchez is a legend in the Mexican folk music.
Corridos.
Corridos. He was one of the best. Basically, he was a gangster from Sinaloa who killed the rapist of his sister and somehow got away with that. Left to Tijuana, became a smuggler, then went to the U.S., got imprisoned, and started writing corridos for people inside a prison.
Oh, wow.
And he just became a legend. At one of his, I think it was in Coachella, he was playing live, and a dude pulled a gun in the crowd, and Chalino shot back.
From the stage?
From the stage in the U.S. as a Mexican national. And somehow didn't get into. He was like, oh, that was clearly self-defense. Different times.
Now, I don't want to detour too much from your story with your brother, but just for any of the people listening, the gringos, can you just explain briefly kind of what a corrido is and what it means to the Mexican people?
If people are into gangster rap,
yeah,
gangster rap is basically people reporting on what's going on the street and who the heroes are, or the criminal heroes, or the Robin Hoods of society in a way. It's the same thing. You'll listen to a corrido in Mexico, you're hearing a story of somebody doing something heroic or noble in an unnoble society, or in a place that is like crime-ridden or within criminality. Not always. There's some other corridos for people that are doing other things.
The way Fernando kind of described it, I had Fernando Puente recently, is awesome. But he was kind of describing it in that same way, where like in America, gangster rap, you have former criminals making music, whereas with Mexican corridos, you have musicians making music about criminals and people within crime families. And like I just always assumed anytime I saw like a young Mexican dude riding down the street like in a lowrider or some shit, and he's playing like mariachi music, as a white guy, I'd be like, why is he listening to this old music? I thought it was like Vicente Fernandez or some shit. I didn't understand what they were listening to. And he told me, he's like, no, that's like the newest, hottest underground shit. That's like the equivalent of listening to Drake. And I had no idea. I thought they were listening to like old, like 70s music.
And a lot of these groups that sing some of these things have allegiances to certain cartel groups. So right now we just saw Peso Pluma on MTV. And he has had his life threatened if he plays in Tijuana, because he sings for the Sinaloa cartel. And Tijuana is in a war between the Sinaloa cartel and the New Generation cartel. And they said, if you play here, we'll kill you. And that's the second time that's happened. So it's a very public and also very, the youth gravitates towards that, and the glorification and the kind of like augmentation of the cartel culture on one side. But also the fact that they're singing about something that's really happening. So in a way, a lot of people get their news and their awareness of what's happening through those songs. That's what corridos are.
It just sounds so happy. You just listen to it, it's like...
Well, I mean, most of them are singing about surviving death,
Yeah, but the lyrics are like, it's like Lil Durk. It's like, you're listening to lyrics, it's like, this guy shot this guy and then he ran away, and it's like, bro, this is crazy.
A true corrido isn't asked for, it's made. Like some people ask for them, or they get paid for it.
They pay for it.
Yeah, I have one. Somebody wrote one about me. They listened to a bunch of my interviews, apparently, and they made one. And it just blew my mind that somebody did that. But when you listen to it, it's not a none of them are glorifying crime or anything. It's like a lamentation in a way when you listen to some of them. Like they wish it was better. They wish they could have done better. They wish they could have been good, but they were pushed into a life, and they're singing about it.
Right.
And when you listen to some of the narrative that some of these songs have, yes, there's a lot of boasting, but it comes from a place of sadness and insecurity, because as Mexicans, we have that. We're underdogs. So when somebody sings like you'll hear some of the newer corridos where they're talking about, expensive brands. These are kids that grew up barefoot in certain parts of Sinaloa, and they know poverty. They know losing everything. They know death more so than a lot of people. So when they sing about it and when they talk about it in these songs, you're hearing something live and direct from a place where it's happening. A lot of the gangster rap here in the U.S., gangster violence or gang violence of the nature that it was in the 90s and before that, it's not the case anymore. So a lot of them are singing about things that they imagine to be true or stories from somebody else. And these kids are singing about things that are happening every day.
Yeah.
I mean, Peso Pluma is under a death threat, like a true and active death threat, and he's just sang at the MTV Video Music Awards.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest Mexican artists ever, and arguably one of the biggest artists in the world right now.
Yeah, he's achieved a level in popular culture that nobody in his kind has ever done before, and what he represents is what's like unique. He represents not only the youth right now and that culture, that narco, glamorous narco folk culture because that's what it is, even though he dresses like he's from the future. But he represents that. He represents a current state of mind and being for youth in Mexico. Now, people can say it's a negative or a positive. It exists, and people need to pay attention to it and listen to it. There's nothing. I think the negativity aspect of it, it's glorifying a life. It is romanticizing people that aren't that romantic. It's representing something that, how many of those kids in the back of trucks with an AK-47 and a bunch of radios will make it to a point where they can afford a Louis Vuitton bag?
Yeah.
Or how many of them are going to even live to see 28? You know, I understand why people worry about it. Like, it's glorifying narco culture and stuff like that. But it's also, if you're not paying attention to it and hearing it, it's also providing a truth.
Yeah, it's just discussing what the life is. Like, people say this has been a debate in America for years, right, relating to rap music. It's like, oh, they're glorifying gang violence. It's like, you could say that, but you could also look at it as they're just discussing what their daily life is, assuming that it is authentic. There's obviously people from the suburbs that rap that it's not authentic. But if you're truly living in Compton in a gang-affiliated territory, and you're just talking about what your life is that glorification, or are you just discussing, Tuesday?
Yeah.
And is that wrong for someone to talk about?
Yeah. For me, I grew up in the punk rock scene in Tijuana.
Yeah.
So I was averse to all of it. My rebellion against music like that was cultural, because my brother was into Chalino Sanchez. He would wear cinto piteados, which are these absurdly expensive belts that are stitched with silver threading. He would wear the Stetson hats that are worth God knows how much. He had guns with silver grips and stuff like that. He was all about that culture.
He's your older brother?
He was my middle brother.
How many siblings do you have?
I have two. My big brother, middle brother, and I'm the accident. So he was in that culture. But when I was a kid, I would look at it as like, that was not for me. I was more Americanized in a lot of ways because of some of the stuff I was watching on TV, and I grew up on Hollywood movies and stuff like that. So I was completely buying into the programming, I guess, in a way. I skateboarded. Skateboarding, music, punk rock. One of my uncles gave me a Misfits record once when I was a kid, and that just put me on that path.
Yeah. That logo. Maybe the best logo in music, bro. I don't even listen to them, but I know the logo. I'm like, that's how
I remember listening to the lyrics and them being absurdly violent and dark for no reason.
Yeah.
And that spoke to me for some reason, growing up. But
it's interesting. You had like angst, would you say?
So when I was, my life as a kid was great, and my mom was amazing. She was like, I speak about her a lot. She was great. She was amazing. She was a teacher. She was a healer. She was everything. My dad was doing great. The business was doing great, and everything was stable. And then when my brother was 19, he died in a car accident, a very tragic and horrible one. So my life went from having a stable family nucleus with my brothers and everything going great to having a psychiatric break in my mother, and to having a dad that went into a deep alcoholism and depression, and a brother who ran from that whole issue, and I was left to my devices at 13. Which I thought, like, it's only through therapy and stuff like that they figure out that it's not normal to be absurdly independent at 14 and just being a feral kid and just running around and doing shit.
Yeah.
So my childhood ended at 13 when my brother died. And it's not angst. I think it's since nobody's here for me, I need to be absurdly independent was my reaction to it. So I started to work at 14. I ran away from home in a lot of ways, and my home was empty. People were there, but nobody was there.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to know what it is like to lose a son, but whatever that is killed my mother in life, and it took a part of my dad too.
Yeah.
wanted to grow up to be like a doctor, and I went to medical school for a bit. But something about that experience basically made me feel unsafe and made me want to be. To this day, my dad knows my brother's favorite song. And he's talked about when my brother died, he had a funeral that was like a concert. Musicians were there, giant party. Multiple women approached me presenting themselves as my brother's girlfriend. So he was a gangster. He was a gangster. He was a gangster. He was famous. He was loved. There was a shit ton of people there.
And what was his favorite song?
Nieves de Enero by Chalino Sanchez. Ya llegaron las nieves de enero. It's basically a song that's lamenting that the seasons are changing and this woman is just not coming back, So it's a lamentation song, but I don't know why. He was so young. He was singing about such sad things. Something about his death and the fact that he lived so largely, and he was just 19 when he left. When he died, I ran away from home in a lot of ways. I came back one night, and this is something that came up in therapy recently. Like I've been through about 2 years of it. I was 13 and I came back home, and she was in the balcony waiting. Like every night she would wait for my brother to come back because she was really distraught. So I walked over to the door into the light of the hallway, and I could see some excitement in her because she was praying. She would pray. She would say the holy mysteries. And I walked into the light, and she thought I was my brother. And when she saw it was me, she saw right through me and rolled her eyes out. And that made me wish that I had died instead of my brother. And it led me on a path to do epic shit, basically. So if I have to figure out a way to gain my mom and dad's attention, just like my dead brother. So I have to figure out how to die in an amazing way, right? So that was my origin point, I guess, that diverged me from being a kid who was great and wanted to figure things out and was playing in a bicycle and just had a normal life to a kid at 14 scamming shit and figuring out how to sell stuff and wearing punk rock t-shirts and getting into a band and just figuring things out for himself and just going on to a life path that led me to having a conversation with you.
Yeah, that's profound.
Yeah.
You made a comment that death is inevitable.
Yeah.
That death is going to happen. It's not if you'll die, it's what will you die for.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned in the conversation with Lex that, if you're going to die, it might as well be for a good purpose and it might as well be for something.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that interaction and sort of that experience with your mother and your brother was kind of the genesis point for that idea?
Realistically, I made the longest, most complex suicide attempt that has ever been attempted, I guess. In my mind, I said, well, my brother died and he was insanely famous and great and loved, and all these people keep talking about him, and he's eternally young and beautiful and he's a light forever. How can you compete with that? But as a child, let me figure that out. I looked for death when I was legit. Like I didn't know well enough to open up my veins or do anything horrible like that. But I said to myself, I'm going to live a life that brings me so close to it that if it finds me, it will be a good death.
Yeah. It really takes the edge off of dying if it's so. I mean, in a way, it was glamorized for you.
Yeah.
Like you got to see this like beautiful celebration of your brother's life.
Yeah.
And especially as a young kid, you have this extremely regular life. You have these two parents that are doting and loving and available. And then not only do you lose your brother, you lose both your parents.
Yeah.
And in a way, you probably lose your older brother, right? If he just kind of removes himself.
One of the most painful things that anybody can experience is seeing somebody dead in life, like somebody dying that's still alive.
Yeah.
And in a big way, that's what happened to my mom and my dad. They both left You know, and it's not blaming them. I can't imagine what that pain is.
Yeah,
but
you can't blame them.
But it's, you know.
But the fact that it happened and it's not necessarily their fault doesn't change the trauma that you experienced. And it's not only the trauma from that one experience, it's the persistent trauma from all the other experiences that happened therefore that you can't confide in them.
Yeah, I was transformed. Yeah. Grief reveals you. Yeah, and I think it revealed something to me.
Did it shake your relationship with religion?
Yeah.
You had mentioned before, I don't want to rehash too much of the conversation, but
Guadalupe.
In the studio, I have
a Virgen de Guadalupe standard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was raised Catholic and specifically Guadalupano. I was raised to venerate the Virgin of Guadalupe. My mom and my dad weren't married through the church, but they were very devoutly Catholic, but they didn't get married to the church.
Why?
Through the church. I don't know. I never really figured out why, but they were very Catholic.
But you knew that though.
Yeah.
And they told you, or you just found it out?
I only found it out later on in life. I never put two and two together. I went through baptized communion. My brothers did it. Like, we went to church. It was fine. When my brother died, an uncle went to the church to ask a priest to talk to my parents, and they wouldn't talk to my parents because they didn't get married through the church. And that is when that relationship ended, and my family left the church basically after that. Well, it wasn't in our lives anymore.
Wow.
So like a big part of that spiritual stuff in me died then, as far as the relationship with the church. But it was reborn later in a different way.
That probably also fueled your sort of angst towards bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, your parents are hurting, they're in pain, and they need help, but they can't get the help that they need because of some type of like technical...
Yeah, you weren't married through the church, so we can't comfort you in the moment of the most need ever. Yeah. Because you just lost a son.
And yeah, it's kind of definitionally like bureaucracy. It's like just, it was frustrating.
It was frustrating, and also that again, the rebellion aspect of it. It produced that whole experience produced a lot of stuff in me, but specifically this weird rebellion against, if I'm not safe and stable, then I'm not. Let me just lean into it. Mm-hmm. You know, the whole looking for chaos aspect of it.
So now you're 13, listening to punk music, skateboarding.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the skateboarding thing. I want to kind of tap into like the cartel world at this point, because I'm sure now, like, you're kind of probably into the 90s. The cartels are starting to like take foothold within TJ.
There's shootouts in public that are
never happened before.
Not really. You would see judiciales, which are the police detectives in Mexico, like doing shit in the city, and you wouldn't tell are they cops or the cartel members, because you couldn't tell, but maybe they were both. Who knows? A lot of them were like that. The corruption was always there in law enforcement. Sure, and it was always shady. But then you started seeing a presence through the Arellano Felix cartel and some of the ruptures that they had with members of the Sinaloa cartel. And so you started seeing a back and forth between, federal police would show up, we're working for one cartel, getting a shootout with the local police because they're working with bodyguards for the other cartel.
Of course.
I'm skateboarding with my friends at a place called La Bandera. It's where the big flag is right now in Tijuana. It's flying over next to a military base. And I don't know if, again, like piecing things together in history, you don't know if it's real or not, but they would put music on in that military base, and they would put the volume up while we were skateboarding outside randomly. And I never knew why that was. They would just randomly just put music on inside of there. It's weird for a military base. And it's later on that we figured out that, like when I was working in active, that I saw them do it again now as a cop and working with them in a capacity. Oh, it's to drown out the screams of the people that they're working on in there. That's what I was, as a kid, you didn't know what was going on. You saw that you're skateboarding in this park, and you're dragging these homemade poles and tubes to slide on and all this shit. And this is like the background noise that it's starting to climb. You don't know what's going on. you start seeing tension around the city in a lot of ways. There was a phenomenon that happened in Tijuana that didn't happen anywhere else, I think, in the cartel world. The phenomenon of Narco Jnrs. Narco Jnrs are basically well-off, middle-class kids in Tijuana, and some of them well-off kids in Tijuana, joining cartels because they were enticed into it, because they loved the music, that they loved the life, I guess.
These are like children of doctors and
business
engineers.
business industry, like well-off, well-placed people.
Government officials' kids and stuff like that.
So imagine an organized crime element that starts from the bottom that now has hands and roots in every single rich person's family and industry and community in Tijuana. It became entrenched in a very deep way. So you started, I remember going to high school and, you would get the kids that would sell you weed and you would smoke it in the bathroom, which was great, horrible Tijuana weed. And then you would get kids that would carry guns to school that were in the life. And then they would get picked up in, cars that were kind of weird. And then you would know well enough not to pick up fight or do anything to them because some shit would happen. And then you would see them steal other dudes' girlfriends in a forceful and evil way. That type of stuff you start seeing, which was like, hey, this is not part of the normal.
And you understood what the cartel was at that point. Like, at what age were you like, oh, there is this?
13. So at 13, I was like oblivious to life, and then what happened. So I became independent, hyper aware, and I started talking to people. I started seeking safety and awareness, and then any way I could, and just seeing some of it on the news, seeing it some of it in popular culture, and just talking to people about, hey, Andrew, you remember Andres? Yeah, what about Andres? He's gone. Nobody knows where he is. It's like, wow. How? No, I don't know. They went. Some people came to his house that said they were cops, and they took him. So where is he? Nobody knows. And they find him like 4 days later.
Wow.
And then it happens again to another friend.
So now not only is your sense of core safety through your family taken away, but now societal safety is stripped away.
Yeah. People getting taken, abducted, and then ransomed off, or people getting killed because they're in the life. Mm-hmm. People randomly being women, girls who are cute, and somebody said they're cute, and then them getting picked up at gunpoint at their homes in front of their fathers and mothers. Medieval shit.
Yeah.
Pillaging shit.
Yeah, insane brutality.
Cold, power-hungry people doing inhumane things to each other. You start seeing it more and more. So more and more lines were being crossed as time went on. Mm-hmm. Like, this is the 90s going into the 2000s. So there was a rule, no women, no children. Probably somewhere in the 60s or 70s or 80s, who knows? I was gone.
Right.
You would see shootouts, and you would see people getting executed with their families inside of the car with them. There was a few famous massacres in Baja where they would go. One of them was in Rosarito, I think, where they went into a little hacienda type space, and they murdered women and children. They basically took everybody out and executed them. For what reason? God knows. But you started seeing a level of brutality that was almost like an arms race to see who could be the most brutal. Mm-hmm.
And as far as like your personal community as you're coming up, skating became your world.
Yeah, it became a collection of misfits like myself that didn't kind of belong in other parts of society. We weren't it wasn't. Being skateboarding gave me. It's only recently that I kind of figured how much that gave me.
And how were you introduced to it, and what did it do for you?
My friends, my best friends started skateboarding, and I basically had to join in if they wanted to be with them, right? I wasn't particularly good at it. I was very good at breaking into places, though, and climbing fences and figuring out how to construct things that we could skate on.
You like the problem-solving component,
yeah,
and the creativity.
I'd figure things out for us. I remember just realizing that all the people that were with me, we would close off a street and just skate or go to places and get chased off by the cops and stuff like that. I realized that these people were all running with me. You know, all of us are fleeing the cops. All of us are running from one skate spot to another. So I could run away with all of these people because all of us are running away.
That feels good.
Oh, it felt great. It felt freeing, so exhilarating. Also, I was doing a lot of cardio workouts, you know. It was very welcoming. As time progressed, though, like, you know, I'm speaking of 16, 17, 18, like, the skateboarding started kind of like, everybody had to go on a path, you know, like school and everything. Since I wanted to gain my parents' attention again, because I overachieved in a lot of ways. So I went to medical school, you know. And like friends like, medical school, you know, fucking spiked hair, you know. I was in a band for a while. Our band was called Arm the Homeless, you know, prophetic, that I now teach people how to improvise weaponry and stuff like that across the country.
Yeah.
I figured out that, you know, skateboarding was great and everything like that, but it's obviously not a life path. Being in a band and all of that was great, but it was probably not my life path, and I needed to do something that would be important. So I went to medical school. 9/11 happened around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And it hit Tijuana like a sledgehammer. The bars were full before 9/11. People would cross in freely, and they would spend their money in weekends in Rosarito, and it was a crowd of people. And then 9/11 hit. I was putting on my white coat and my white pants and my white shirt, because you would wear all white when you go to medical school in Mexico. And as I was dressing up, I turned on the TV, and the second plane hit the tower. And I was like, holy shit. In my mind, I was like, well, that's far away. That's not going to affect us. And it did. The economy went in the toilet. My dad's business failed. So now, not only were we a broken family, we're broke as well. And I couldn't afford medical school on my own. So I had to look for options. I had to look for some options, and I was lost for a while. And all of a sudden I saw an ad in the newspaper that said, wanted, young, unmarried, you know, motivated men, you know, want to join this experimental police force. Want in on it.
Bro, that's a sketchy sign.
I saw it and I was like, what is this about?
Young boys wanted? I wouldn't have gone for that.
Young men. Young men wanted, unmarried if possible, you know. No, they had these requirements, I guess. And I remember seeing it, and I was a punk rock kid. Still am at heart. Fuck the cops. Puercos de mierda. You know, that I had hate for them, contempt. It fucking, several skateboards were taken from me. I was beaten by the cops several times, caught, arrested, all this shit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I see this. There's no opportunity, by the way. Like, it's not like, hey, I'll just get a job at Starbucks, or I'll go work here at Costco. No, this is, the economy's in the toilet. Everybody's fucking suffering. The only other employment that I could figure out for myself, I was working at a video store. The only other employment that I could figure out for myself was going into a call center. And I applied to a call center job at a place called Telvista in Tijuana. People won't listen to this that are from Tijuana will laugh at that probably. I applied to that, and I also applied to this other program thing that they had on. I took the newspaper ad to my dad and my mom, and I said, hey, I'm going to do this. My mom didn't respond. But my dad said, you won't make it through. And my brother said the same.
What's up, guys? We're going to take a break really quick because you need to take your health seriously. And the best way to do that is with the good folks at Bubs Naturals. Oh, yeah. Bubs Naturals is amazing. It's a great company. Sometimes you get these different companies that are very pretentious. It's like, do this. Bubs is very approachable for all types of people. It seems that way probably because it was named after Glenn Bub Doherty. Yeah, this guy was an absolute legend, truly a hero. He was a Navy SEAL who laid down his life saving Americans and fighting for his brothers. So if it's good enough for Glenn, it's good enough for me. Bubs has a bunch of different products. They got everything. Collagen peptides, take care of your hair. They got oil powders. They got coffees. But the thing I want to talk to you about today is Hydrate or Die. This little pack right here. I'm never going to talk about a product on this show that I have not tried personally. And I'm telling you, I have been using these packs for the past couple weeks. The Hydrate or Die pack is absolutely amazing. It tastes great. This is the thing. Sometimes with these different powders, they have a weird aftertaste. They make you feel a little weird. This one is amazing. You just drop it right in there, give it a little swirl. I really love this one. This one tastes absolutely amazing. And the thing I love the most about it is you're sipping it and you're like, why is this so good? This must be packed with added sugars. No added sugar. Only 6 ingredients. I mean, I'll tell you right now on the box. Organic coconut water powder, Himalayan salt, natural lemon flavor, magnesium citrate. It's it. It's as bare bones and basic as you can get to actually be taking care of your health. Absolutely a performance enhancer. I take this before I work out. I feel way more hydrated. There's nothing better. If it's good enough for a Navy SEAL, I'm telling you, it's good enough for you. I mean, I'll just go through the list here. 2,000 milligrams of electrolytes, no added sugar, 6 ingredients, vegan, plant-based, gluten-free, soy-free. If you want a very easy, approachable, natural health and wellness company, I'm telling you, Bubs are the guys for you. I'm actually drinking out of my Bob Shinobi Ninja cup right now. Having a great time. If you're interested in taking control of your health, we're going to do it with Bubs. So if you want to check it out, go to Bubs Naturals, B-U-B-S Naturals, Naturals.com. And I want you to use the code Gagnon, Gagnon, for $15 off your order. That's right. BubsNaturals.com. Take control of your health. Start taking it seriously. There's no better investment in your life than into your health. Let's get back to the show.
You won't make it through. The worst thing they could have told.
Yeah, now it's fuck you forever.
Now it's personal.
Let's go.
I found myself in the selection process. Looking around the room, I wasn't like any of these people. Some of them were ex-military guys. Some of them older men. You know, I was 20, about to turn 21, which was the cutoff. It was the youngest you could be. But there were people in there at 35, you know. Experienced men that had lived a different kind of life than I had. So I felt out of place like a motherfucker in there. I was wearing Ed knees for selection. I was standing with a group of people, some of them very fit. I thought they were very fit. And I was like, what am I doing here? And then they had us run, to time us and to see how, like, if we could make this run. And I ran all of those motherfuckers, all of them, in my skateboarding shoes. And it was because I was fucking doing cardio every day because I skateboarded.
Yeah. That's what you're used to running in.
Yeah. So I was doing cardio every day. I just didn't realize that. It's like, So I guess that worked. I was committed, you know, like, I'm excelling in this weird space. I passed all the exams. I was on my way to be a state prosecutor's office police officer, basically being a ministerial, basically a police detective. That was the path that I wanted to take. But then somebody there said, hey, but we have this state police experimental new thing we're doing. You want to go into that? Los Pepos, as they're called now, they've changed. It's not the best institution now, but back then it was new, it was experimental, it was a project that a man by the name of Lieutenant Colonel Leizaola, who's like a legendary lawman in Mexico, a former military officer, started. So he was like, how can I change this war that's happening? I can't trust the cops. I can't trust these people over here. So I need to make something from the ground up. And that's what he did. He developed a program of training, selection, and then those people he took out and turned into a specifically counter organized crime.
Now, was this made in reaction to the militarization of the cartels?
this was right before the kickoff of this war, this like open kickoff of the war. I mean, it was already a problem. When I was inside training, we had one of the first like legit operations against the cartel group in Tijuana that led to a shootout and some epic stuff. A bunch of federal agents showed up to the house of a known cartel boss, and he basically drove through the garage door with an armored vehicle and had a shootout that was a few hours long with them. It was basically a military operation in the middle of the city. And we were in training while this was going on, so we were looking at the shit on the news, so we were looking at what we were going into.
Terrifying.
For me, it was exciting because I was very damaged.
Yeah.
But for the people there, I remember, it was like, I didn't have kids. Like some of them in there had kids, even though they said they didn't. Some of them, you could see the fear in them, you know, like, oh shit. When we got there for training, I thought it was like, you know, my experience like police academy, you know? I was going to get uniforms and we're going to learn about arresting people and laws and
kick a door down. Yeah.
You know, but just, I don't know. I had a concept of what we're going to do. And all of a sudden I see all of our instructors are all ex-special forces soldiers from a group called Agafe. That's the people that turned into the Zetas. The Zeta cartel were all members of the Agafe, the original like SF units in Mexico. Highly motivated and educated people.
Armed security, bodyguards, that kind of thing.
I mean, these guys were guerrilla warfare specialists. What are they doing training cops? It was. I didn't understand what was going on until, you know, later on in life you figure out what they were trying to do. Mm-hmm. But I remember, and people were there with me. I've mentioned this a few times, but they told us, the first thing they told us when they formed everybody up, hay pan y verga para comer. Y se acabó el pan hace 3 días. There's bread and dick to eat here, and bread ran out 3 days ago. So you only get dick.
Wow.
And our heads were shaven off, like cleanly shaven off. They treated us like garbage. And their whole intention was to make people quit and leave. There was a open door policy. So the door's open, leave. But the deeper you were into the training, the more committed you were to it, because that's the programming.
The more pain you've already endured. That sunk cost fallacy is in your head. You're like, bro, I've already come this far.
Yeah.
Got to keep going.
Patriotism, nationalism, militarized programming. You know, they're doing a great job. It's a program.
Those were tenets of the program, though, like Mexican nationalism.
Marching, being ordered to march, and formation movements were very much part of the mental aspect and program of what they were doing. Daily flag ceremonies, paramilitary training, assault training that wasn't, you know, if I'm a cop, why am I wearing this plate armor? And why do I have all these magazines? Why am I training how to assault a building in a military way? Why am I training to engage convoys of vehicles, like, or ambushing? Like, what is this?
So
what
how are you feeling in the training? You're this skate kid, this punk rock, fuck the police person.
I have all of what they need. I like risk. I like adrenaline. I've already lived a life of risk. I've already ran from the cops. Mm-hmm. I'm exactly what they need. I'm exactly what they need. I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be.
And you can't really quit.
No.
Then you prove your parents right.
Yep.
You prove your brother right.
So I'm highly motivated, and like a lot of the people there, they're also highly motivated. All of us were perfect for what they wanted us to do. So we were very much used.
Yeah. So you're seeing people probably tougher than you, stronger than you, more fit, that are leaving the program.
Dropping out.
Because they don't have that motivation that you have.
No.
They have parents that were like, oh, try your best.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So again, I'm a child of trauma, so I didn't realize that at that point, but that was a weapon for me.
And I don't want to backtrack too far, but how come once you have this period of extreme liberation and freedom at like 13, 14, you're skating, but you're still drawn to this moral good. You're like, I'm still going to be, in medicine, or then I'm still drawn to the police. Why were you never drawn to this like chaotic evil? Like, why were you never seduced by the cartel and everything that could offer you?
Money wasn't important to me. I just wanted to have the respect and gain the attention back of my mom.
Mm-hmm. So your mother ultimately was that installation of the moral good.
Yeah. I mean, I saw what that was in her.
If you went into crime or you went into cartel life,
I couldn't.
That wouldn't have brought you what you sought.
No.
You were seeking.
I wasn't seeking that type of glory. I just wanted my mom to pay attention to me again.
Yeah.
Which is sad to kind of think about, but I couldn't see any other motivation for me. Like, if I died horribly at work as a cop, that would have been enough for my mom to gain attention, like to see me again, or to witness me again, I guess.
Or you graduate as a doctor.
Or you graduate as a doctor, like, oh, great. Maybe she's now going to celebrate me in the same way that they celebrate my dead brother every Day of the Dead.
Right.
So I was looking for that, I guess.
And did you have opportunities when you were younger to join cartels?
Yeah.
You had friends
It's not like, hey, do you want to join this criminal organization? It was like, hey, do you want to cross some stuff for us into San Diego?
Mm-hmm.
We'll pay you this much money. Hey, do you know anybody that would want to, join this thing and do this stuff for us? Right. And here's this money. Hey, look at Antonio. Look at his car. He's driving around that Dodge, that new Dodge. That's pretty cool. You want to be in that? Yeah, a lot of my friends took that and ran with it. I just, since I was a punk rock kid, none of that shit appealed to me, The music and the life, the cartel, that shit, it was outside of the scope of my interest.
Mm-hmm.
I was just not into any of it. My whole search was, first off, recognition from my parents, and the second one was freedom.
Yeah,
I just wanted to be free.
And so freedom is like leaning you towards societal rebellion, but ultimately your mother's and your parents' approval is leading you towards sort of like this social cohesion, this moral good.
Yeah, and also just to do something that is epic, or is big enough that they will look at me.
Right. And so how long does it take for you to get through training once you're in with the special force?
It's like 6 months training there, and basically the first 3 months is them trying to make you quit.
Yeah.
And then when they realize who the good people are, I mean, not good people, like the people that are there for the right reasons, then there's the people that don't pass the FBI background checks that were being put on us, which we didn't know realistically. I don't know what any of that was. But a lot of us were actually put through American FBI background checks. So they would walk in and say, Antonio, raise your hand. Hey, did you participate in the smuggling of humans into the United States and were caught at this time? Yes. Okay, you can't be here. Get out. Hey, is your family member a member of this cartel? And are you family members with this one? Yeah, okay. You're a cartel plant. Fuck you. Get out. So people started getting kicked out in that way as well.
Wow.
Because cartels were aware of what was going on in a way, so they wanted to put people in. So a lot, and it did. A lot of them got through. Later on, we found out. But like you're experimenting this thing where there's a large group of people and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Like, I'm still here. Like, hopefully I don't fuck up. Hopefully I don't fuck up. And you're like trying to survive this process. And all the time we're seeing what's going on outside. It's getting worse. It's like a storm. You're in this protected space. It's dangerous inside, but it's everything. You're living in this microcosm of what might happen outside. And you're hearing news. You're listening to stuff. 6 months. And then a few months to kind of prep other things. But I remember in graduation, you get a radio, like a SATCOM radio. You get a gun. I got a gun that I'd never even seen or shot before. You're in the academy and they teach you how to shoot a Beretta, 92 FS pistol. And when you get out, you get a Glock, which is a completely different gun. And I'd never seen one before. So all of a sudden you have this weird space gun in my hand. It's like, what the hell is this? unprepared, completely unprepared. I mean, I thought we were being prepared, but realistically,
Yeah.
there's no way you can prepare something for the amount of shit that we went out into. Well, when we went out, there was already a few generations of us out there that were part of the program. I got base duty the first day I got out. You're the new guy, right? But I was motivated. So I, yeah, sure, base duty. So I went there at the base. One of the older guys came over to me. Hey, what's your name? Ed. Okay, Ed. Grab the cizallas, the bolt cutters. And I'm like, shit, we're going to go on a raid or something. Yes. You know, I grabbed the bolt cutters, you know. Come ride with me. I went, like, rode with them. I thought I was going to go to do some cool shit, you know, raid or something like that. I don't know, in my mind. Some kid, idiot. We're going to go do a favor for the forensic service people. I had to cut somebody down off a bridge that was hung overnight. That's when that's you know, like, oh shit, what did I do?
That's the moment.
So I go up there, cut some stuff off. There's a flatbed thing that they put on there, and the body flops on there. People are watching. You know, there's a taco stand across the way, and then they're eating. So I start seeing this. This is like a weird normalized thing. It's starting to be, in a way. The older guy has been through 2 years of this already, and it's like you could see it in his eyes. I was horrified by what I was seeing. And I said, who can possibly be as evil and as horrible to do this to somebody? And he said, Ed, you're stupid. Like, they were kind to him. I was like, what? What do you mean they're kind to him? Yeah. They were. This is kindness. Like, what do you mean? At least his family has a body to cry over and bury. This is kindness. The body is a gift. I realized how fucked up of a place that I was in that moment, where a mutilated, tortured body hung from a bridge, left to be found, was kindness.
And you had heard about this thing, but you had never seen it in that way.
I'd never had to cut anybody down from a place. I'd never had to do any of that type of shit, you know.
And that memory is still seared in there. It's very visceral.
Yeah, I could still smell it. I still remember the body flopping, you know, that aspect of it. And I remember the realization that I was seeking freedom, and I found myself in hell in a way. You know, that's the only word I could find to describe it. I was trapped in this. I was set in this path, and I'd invested too much of me in it. I couldn't leave it, but also I wasn't ready for it, and there was nothing you could do to get ready for it, I guess. But it was.
What percentage of the emotions in that moment were external, seeking like a why or justice for what had happened? And what percentage was internal, where you were like, oh, I'm now in a prison.
Yeah.
I am fucked up for being in this situation.
So it was most of it was internal. Yeah. Like it was, I thought I was a badass. I bought into the programming. I'm indestructible. We're just killing machines. We're
Saving
fucking
Mexico.
ninjas. We're saving Mexico. The flag is on our backs. We need to figure this out. All of us together, all for one, and all that shit. And all of a sudden, I'm cutting a dude off a bridge, and it doesn't mean anything. At
Isolated.
that moment. It's isolated. It's just me. It's just me with this old dude who's been here for longer than I have, doing a job that I was trained to do, and his eyes are gone. They're glass. And he's seeing kindness in what is in front of me. That's it was a lot. It was a lot. I remember going back home that night. Previous nights I would go back home and just play video games. I had a PlayStation, you know. And it was the first night that I didn't.
And what'd you do?
I drank. I drank a six pack of Bohemia. It's a very strong beer in Tijuana, in Mexico. I drank a 6-pack of Bohemia. That's probably the start of my heavy drinking.
And did you know what you were doing at the time? Like, did you go to the store and be like, okay, I'm going to buy this to not feel, or was it completely passive where you're like, man, you know, a beer would be good. Let me have a beer and just kind of.
Like, I mean, I had been drinking since I was like 16.
Sure.
But for parties, for like impressing friends.
Never alone.
Never alone. Never alone. And all of a sudden I found myself in my shitty room with a mattress on the ground with all these idealistic thoughts of what I'm going to do and the change that I'm going to do and all this saving whatever. And I'm drinking myself to sleep. So I can have dreamless sleep. Drunk, dreamless sleep. So I can rest.
Because at this point you were having dreams and nightmares.
I mean, it was the start of it, but we hit the ground running, you know.
Yeah.
It was bad as soon as you got there. And also the fact that you were insulated when you're training and you're told that you're all this stuff, and then you go out and you're being spat on by the people in society because they're on the side of some of these people, you know.
And you probably empathize with them too. You're like, yo, I get it. The police suck.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm on your team.
And I was trying to be good. You know, I'm trying to not be that, and I don't know. But then, you know, I got to work with the other members of the military and federal police. There were these things called boom groups, base de operaciones mixtas. So we would work with the army. We'd work with the federal police. Basically, would run around Tijuana or Baja in general, the whole state, and we would just arrive as a group and just raids and go into cartel safe houses and shit like that. And I was working with them. And again, I had this idealism going in there. I remember going into a house with the army, and I was like scanning all the rooms and figuring things out and just doing my job. And as I'm walking down the stairs, these army guys in full kit are sitting in the kitchen eating abalone.
What's
Canned
abalone?
Canned abalone. It's a shellfish that is very highly sought after in Mexico, in the world actually. It's very endangered down there. So they found a bunch of canned abalone and they were just eating it in the kitchen of this cartel safe house.
Wild.
And I walked down the stairs and I'm like doing site exploitation shit, you know, it's like finding laptops and putting phones and things and like finding paperwork, and I'm doing my job. And then these guys are just eating abalone in the kitchen. I walk downstairs and look at them, and in my mind, like, what are you guys doing in my mind? But then they kick a chair so I could sit down and eat with them. And I did. I realized that, you know, whatever normal was or whatever concept I had of what I had to do or was about to do was completely wrong. I had to adapt. I had to figure out what was acceptable, what wasn't. There was a reality being dictated to me by the people that were already in that fight. Mm-hmm. And whatever idealisms I had about what right was, what good was, what was correct was completely warped. Mm-hmm. Because everybody had their own concept of it. It's a free for all. Everybody had a.
Right. You're basically in how do they say in Tijuana, the fourth power.
Yeah. Cuarto poder.
Yeah, which is, there's these cartels that exist, and the police, by just the nature of, I guess, like human tribalism, becomes its own cartel. And I think cartel obviously has a negative connotation.
Yeah,
but
we were another gang.
That's your gang.
We were another gang.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Colonel Izola kind of arrived on the scene for us, as far as like a leader and a mentor.
Did you respect him?
Yeah, I feared him though. He's a man. If you respected him, but there was also a fear, because Lieutenant Colonel Izola is an amazing human being, but he's definitely a man to be feared. He's in a wheelchair now. And I just did a podcast interview with him for about 4 hours. I still stand at attention when I see him,
What did he do initially to gain your respect or to gain your fear?
Let's go on a run. And he would run with us. The first time he came on board in our unit as a commander, as a director, and patrolled Tijuana, I was driving him around. I was with him for the first night of patrol. I'd seen other directors and other leadership in that position, and they were at the office, They were not, what the fuck are you going to be doing out there, right? Just send the guys, send us. And I was at the base, and I was introduced to him, like directly as now an agent, not as a random shaved dude at the academy.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I was working with a commander at that point, and I was like gaining reputation, and I was being pulled on stuff, and they saw potential in me, and they saw that I was a crazy motherfucker, and that's what they needed. So when he came in, it's like he had a guy that was driving him around, but he needed somebody from the city as a guide and also as security. So somebody snapped the finger and said, Ed. I ran over and I bumped into this figure in the form Lizola in there. It's like, I stood at attention. Said, are you from Tijuana? It's like, yeah, I was born here. That's a rare thing. Like, everybody's from other places, but you're from here. Yeah, I'm from here. Cool. Do you know your way around? Yeah, like the back of my hand. Cool. He says, okay, let me see your rifle. I showed him my rifle. Okay. I didn't understand what that was about. He was basically trying to see if I took care of my weaponry and like if I had accessories on it, if I was committed to the job, I guess. I don't know. And I climbed the car with him. And we started patrolling. Like, we would patrol in groups. Back then, there was a open bounty on us. We were being hunted. So they would offer money for our badges. There was an ad in the newspaper. There's a famous paper in Tijuana called El Zeta. Front page on that was Cacería de Policias, cop hunting. And they were talking specifically about us, how we're being hunted by the criminal organizations. And
was there one cartel specifically, or all of them?
There was one specific cartel, basically a faction of the Sinaloa cartel that was trying to take control over the city from the historically powerful Tijuana cartel, or the Arellano Field cartel. So at that time, we were the guys that would respond. The municipal police wouldn't show up. The federales were from Mexico, and they would fly to Tijuana, and they would just fucking basically rob and pillage and go back. They didn't give a shit. Mm-hmm. We were the only guys that would respond. Like shootouts, we would go. Like something really hot and heavy that nobody would respond. Hey, the army was with us, so we would show up.
Right. You had the training and the weapons and the guys.
We were making some impactful stuff, and that's why we had a giant target on our backs. And Lizola came into leadership with us, and we legit had our back. Patrolling those first nights with him on the city, he was with us. He was with us.
Did he remind you of any men that you knew before that?
No. I've never met anybody like him ever in my life, before or since. And I've met amazing men in my life, but he is still, again, we raided a house in a place called Ensenada. It was a compound, actually, the giant cartel compound. In the middle of the night, it was probably like 3 a.m. We approached it from the beach. Military operation. we're all cops, but it was a military operation. He was running it. And I remember taking a knee on the beach with a rifle, wearing a mask, and having all my kit and stuff like that, being really quiet about it and worried about being shot at and stuff like that. And then seeing Leizola just basically standing and walking with us without hiding. I looked at him, he looked down at me, and I was like taking a knee, taking cover, and all of a sudden this man is here like standing and looks at me like, why are you hiding? So I stood up and started kicking down doors with him. You know, this is the director and he's with us, just fucking doing shit. I think with him, I saw a true believer. Like he believed in what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
There was a coldness about him though. I couldn't figure out like he knew who I was. He knew who other people were. But he would always, the first time I shook his hand was when I interviewed him a few months back. He had never shook my hand.
Mm-hmm.
There was a separation because he came from a military background. He was an officer, and that's a line. But I didn't know what that was.
Did you feel like he was willing to die for the job?
I think he was willing to die, kill, or send other people to be killed for the job. He was a true believer. He was all in.
Did it make you believe in the cause?
Yeah. I saw somebody that represented hope in that aspect, because you would look around in this environment and, you know, who is your mentor figure in this police unit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because all of us were new. The police unit was new. Everybody was green. Nobody knew what the fuck they were doing. And all of a sudden you have this man who's not only in charge, but he knows what he's doing. I think he provided a lot of direction and hope and an example for us.
And he's doing it with you.
He's with us.
Yeah.
You know, he's bad, but for us, you know, he's our bad guy.
Yeah.
You know, that, and also he empowered us. He got us better weaponry. He got us better training. He made us be feared by the other side. And he intentionally figured ways of doing that. You know, he developed an actual strategy.
And how many of the guys were you with within your unit that were directly under him?
I mean, everybody was under him, but like I was operating with a small group of people, probably like 15 people.
And everyone had that same respect.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knew. Some of the guys that were on when he came in fully were corrupted. You know, they were on the take, and you would see them. You know, we knew who they were. Some of them would show up in like a dude. I remember one dude showed up in a Hummer, like an H2, a yellow H2 to work. Fucking no fear, no shame. Like, wow, that's a cool car, I guess.
Yeah. How'd you make that on the federal police salary?
State police salary, but
yeah.
But like I don't know. And also, mind you, back then the federal police was army guys dressed in gray riding in the back of our trucks. There was no federal police as there were later. We were the best paid police unit in Mexico at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like elite specialty people. But it was like nobody knew what they were doing because nobody ever done that before.
How did he prove? Remind me his name again.
Lieutenant Colonel Leizola.
Leizola,
Yeah.
Leizola.
That's a hard one.
Yeah,
Leizola.
How did he prove that he was fighting for you guys? Like, obviously he's in it with you, but he has his own interests.
Yeah.
But how did he prove to the group that he was willing to vouch for you and support you?
Some of us started getting into situations where we had to use force, and he was with us for that. He would support us legally. Which wasn't there before. And he was pushing and influencing politics for us. Like he got us better weaponry. He got us access to training that was completely unavailable for people like us. My group got access to training in Coronado with people from NSW, basically the Navy SEALs, and people from NCIS, which was unheard of. And I think that's never happened after.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he basically got us the training we needed to work in an environment like that. So when you think about policing in that area, it's urban combat, of course. It's an urban combat setting. who are you going to learn from? An LAPD SWAT guy or some SEALs that are coming back from Afghanistan?
Yeah.
I remember I went to a training assignment specifically for protecting our leadership. So like Lisa Ola needed to have security on him, but it couldn't be normal security. It couldn't be a Secret Service type bodyguard situation. It had to be an overt military operation to protect them.
Of course.
And who are you going to learn from? The guys that were on Mohammed Karzai's protection detail when Afghanistan was invaded for the first years. Those were the guys that brought back lessons, So people that were in an active combat zone in the Middle East were showing us things that we were then applying right across the border from San Diego.
Crazy.
Madness.
Yeah.
Madness.
Did you love him?
Lieutenant Colonel Lizola?
Yeah.
No. That's no. That's not the word for it. I guess I respected him.
Did you love any of the guys in the unit?
Yeah. I mean, we got to experience everything together. There's a few of them that I was really close to. One of them, and I've talked to him about him a few times. I always joke about the fact that going through that hell, I prayed for an angel to save me, and God saw fit to send me a devil. Jaramillo. It's a name that I say every now and then. When I was on Rogan the second time, I had a T-shirt that said Jaramillo lives. So Jaramillo was he was part of my group. Older guy. I don't know how the fuck he made it to training. Chain smoker. He was on the take at some shape or form. He was shady, but he was honorable. Loyal, kept me safe, told me who was in, who was out.
What do you mean, who was in?
Hey, don't talk to those guys over there. Those guys are working for somebody. Hey, those guys over there working for those guys. You probably shouldn't say anything in front of these people over here. How would he know? He's probably,
he's taken as well.
Yeah, but he kept me safe. He told me where the margins were. And we suffered. Man, we went through hell together. Since I wasn't married and I didn't have any kids, Christmases and New Year's didn't exist for me, so I would always be on. One time during the Christmas season, it was me and him and a few of the other guys. We were basically patrolling Tijuana, responding to anything high impact is what the alto impacto, like shootouts or executions and stuff like that, bodies being left. And we were called about a shooting at a very like a marginalized area of Tijuana to the east of the city. And we got there and it was a bunch of kids outside of a house that were having like a party. You could still smell the gunpowder in the air. Like it was recent. Like we got there, it was like guns drawn. The neighbors were hidden, hiding. They saw us get there, and at that time, the criminals, the cartel guys, would dress like us. They would dress like cops. They would wear the badges, the insignias. They would emulate being police officers and show up and shoot everybody. So nobody knew if we were good guys or bad guys, basically, but they were all hiding. A bunch of kids. They're all shot up and dead in that front little yard that he had. There was a slope to it. So where they fell, the blood was going down into the street. There's a bunch of spent shell casings everywhere. 2 through 3 AR-15s, 40s, 9s. There's music still playing, a little speaker. Corridos. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what they were. Corridos. And while we're there, like looking at everybody, you know, the people of the house started coming out because it's safe now. And kids, you know, little kids started coming out and picking up the shell casings off the ground, except the ones that fell in the blood. They didn't pick those up. They respected those for some reason, you know. Mm-hmm. And Jaramillo was with me, you know, smoking a menthol cigarette behind me, unfazed by the scene, because that's who he was. A lady comes over to me and hands me a phone, and he says, "This is the mother of that guy over there." And I grabbed the phone. Can you tell her what happened? Like, and my brain went on autopilot. You know, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't remember exactly what I said over the phone. I just remember her screaming, wailing over the phone. Lamentation. And it brought me back to some of the stuff I saw when my brother died, my mom. The lady started saying the holy mysteries in front of these bodies there. People started covering them up. There's no forensics, like, oh, let's take care of the evidence. None of that. They're just covering up the bodies. And they start, and then the women start saying the holy mysteries, you know. So again, like this flashback of my loss that I experienced in my life, and I'm knee deep into it. And then Jaramillo comes up behind me and slaps me in the back of the head. Like, snap out of it. Fucker, we need to go. Oh, go where? We need to go eat. Yeah, and like I turned around and the forensic people were there now. And the people that were responding to that specific side of it were there, so we had to leave. I got in the car, and he looked at me again, slapped me, you know, one of these. Said, "What's wrong?" It's like, that was hard. You know, that was hard to see. And he said, "Well, get used to it. There's more of it coming." And we went to get menudo. And I had a plate of menudo after that experience. And while I was eating it, I was like, the red sauce of the menudo, you know, the frothy blood that some of these kids were exuding out of their lungs still. I finished the plate, and I realized that was my new normal, and I had to figure it out. And Jaramillo was with me, you know. At least I had this motherfucker with me.
Yeah.
You know?
And then what happens when you go home that night?
I drank.
Yeah. And none of the older guys, did any of them warn you? Did any of them tell you, like?
So they were older, but like again, it says new unit. Like nobody's ever done anything like that. Nobody had ever. There was no. And also, there's no. It's not like up here where like, hey, PTSD is the thing. So there's this support network. Go to a therapist. If you had any issues that were psychological of any kind, you would lose access to the ability of carrying a firearm. So you were off. So you couldn't say shit. You didn't want to say shit.
And how are the other guys coping?
Alcohol, mostly. Mostly alcohol. Women.
Yeah.
Falling. Suicide. Mm-hmm. A lot of suicides.
And are you talking with any of the guys about how much you're drinking? Do you think that the drinking at that point is a problem?
No. It's every now and then we get together and it's binge drinking as a group.
Right.
But it's our celebration. It's our medicine. It's what we do. Mm-hmm. It's putting some corridos on and singing the songs glorifying our enemies and just feeling like men, you know?
Is it affecting you in other aspects of your life?
Oh, I mean, there is no other aspects of my life. It's everything. Mm-hmm. So my family is... So if my intention was to gain the attention of my family is absent because I'm absent. I'm gone from their lives.
Right. Even if they were interested in connecting with you, there's no Ed to connect with.
I'm gone.
And did you Are you reconnecting with your family or seeing them like after you've, been initiated into the program or a few years of work?
No, I can't. I'm ashamed.
You're ashamed in that moment.
I mean, I don't know what I'm turning into. I don't even know who I am. I'm my friends don't recognize me anymore. Again, some of my friends are still punk rock kids, and they see me doing what I do, so I'm like a Judas. There's a punk rock song from Argentina by a band called Dos Minutos. Carlos se vendió al barrio de la luz. Basically, a dude that sold out and joined the police, and these punks are singing that a bullet is waiting in the street for him.
Hardcore.
Yeah. And they would sing me that song, or they would put that song on for me. Like, hey, there's a bullet in the street waiting for you. Yeah.
In jest or serious?
Both.
Yeah.
So like I felt lost as shit. Like I didn't know who I was. I lost most of my identity. My identity was that.
Mm-hmm. That was your freedom.
Yeah. Well, again, it's funny how freedom can turn into a cage.
Yeah.
But I had purpose though. I had purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And that was at least enough. Like my purpose, my purpose was I was good at it. These people are like having me around,
Mm-hmm.
I'm useful.
Yeah. And so at this point, you're like probably a year or two into the program?
About 3-4 years into it, yeah.
And are you imagining the next 10 years of your life? What's up, guys? We're going to take a break really quick because you need to sleep better. Yeah, I'm telling you, everything stems from sleep. Your ability to perform at your job, your ability to work out, your ability to think quickly, your ability to go on dates and talk to women, your ability to have present, active conversations with your loved ones, with your parents. All of it stems from sleep. You might not even realize. You might just be walking around your day being like, man, I feel terrible. And not realizing like, oh, I only slept 5 hours. And of those 5 hours, I was really only asleep for like 1 or 2. I'm telling you, you're going to be spending a massive percentage of your life, like a quarter of your life sleeping. Take it seriously. And if you want to start taking it seriously, what I want you to do is I want you to check out the people at Beam. That's right. The good people at Beam have invented a powder that have helped thousands of people get to sleep and stay to sleep. And that is called the Beam Dream Powder. I tried it. Again, I will never talk about a product on this show that I have not personally tried. And I did it a couple weeks ago. I tried it. I was like, all right, let's just see. Open up the bag. You see the powder. They have a scooper in it, which is nice. A lot of these companies don't include the scooper. Shout out to Beam for including the scoop, thinking about the customer. I take it, drop it in. I just did hot water. Some people do milk. Some people do whole milk. You can go almond milk. I don't think that's crazy. Whole milk might be a little crazy, but to each their own. Do what you will. It tastes amazing with all of them. I just did hot water. Again, still tasted absolutely phenomenal. I was going through the box. I was like, what is in this? This tastes so good. And even on the box, I'm reading all of these different supplements and minerals that I've heard of for years. And I'm like, man, I should be taking it. And finally, I was like, oh, this is the most convenient, easy way that I can start taking all these things. I mean, just a short list. Magnesium, L-theanine, reishi, melatonin, nano CBD, all of these different supplements that are great for you regardless are now put into one powder that's going to help you get to sleep, stay to sleep. I'm just saying, 93% of users wake up feeling more refreshed. I know I did. I woke up that morning, didn't feel groggy at all. Sometimes you take these powders and you feel a little worse. I'm telling you, I felt amazing. I woke up that morning, I was ready to go. I was alert. I felt great the whole day. I've been taking it every couple of days ever since then. I'm just saying, for me, it worked really, really well. If you're interested in checking it out and joining the thousands of people that are taking their sleep and their health seriously, you can go to Shop Beam. That's Shop BEAM. And what I want you to do is I want you to check out the Dream Powder. Again, I can't vouch for the other flavors. Maybe the other flavors, I don't know how they taste. But I can tell you the cinnamon cocoa, that one was amazing. So you can check it out. Use the code GAGNON, GAGNON, for up to 40% off your order. That's an amazing deal. Up to 40% off your order to take care of your health, to take care and take control of your life. There's no better investment than in your health. So if you're interested, that's Shop BEAM. Use the code GAGNON for up to 40% off. Let's get back to the show.
We would speak of ourselves as generations, like each generation of people coming out of the academy, basically.
Like a class.
Yeah, like a class. So the first member of my class that got killed, he was a lawyer before he went in. Pretty cool dude. Very serious. Very motivated kid. Yeah, all of us were fucking kids, like I said. He was a lawyer. But lawyering was not enough for him, so he wanted to do something with his life. So he saw the same thing that I did. But it's funny, like a lawyer and a skateboarding kid, they find themselves in this fucking space, and somehow, you know, we found ourselves in the same plane of existence, I guess. Great guy. Quiet, introspective, smart, motivated guy. Trusted him with everything. We would move around the state and we would stay in hotels sometimes. And we had a buddy system going on. So if you go out, you have to go out with somebody else. Maybe because we were being hunted, you know. A bunch of people show up dressed as federal agents and pick them up when they went to the store coming out of the hotel. They were zip tied, beaten, and put into the back of a van. Stories tell us that one of them took out a knife and stabbed one of the dudes before he was taken, and there was a lot of blood there, so it might be true or might not be true. Who knows? Like, so far back, who knows? They were both found tortured and killed 24 hours later, with their IDs screwed into their foreheads. Rage, anger, vengeful, murderous anger. Like I see stuff in movies about tribes and like warring parties, like being riled up, wanting to vengeance and shit. Like I never thought I was going to be in a space like that, you know. And there was one of many over the years. I started losing people like that. This, hey, what's going on? Here's a coffee. And then you're picking them up off the ground, or you're calling family. And it's such a fast-paced life that you can't stop to process. So you're just living with all of these ghosts. In my mind, still, like were some of them, like some of the first, there's a picture that I posted on my Instagram account. I posted it a few times. And it's part of the generation that I came out with. And there are unblurred faces in that picture. And if they're unblurred, it's because they're gone. These kids were amazing kids. I mean, they were doing amazing work with us. And I mean, they were part of this whole horrible shit going on, but they're great. In my mind, they're still waiting for me somewhere in a hotel. Yeah. Two of the other guys that I lost early on, they would call their girlfriends when we would stay at a hotel. Like there was, for some reason, my room was always the one that was like the party central. They would all pile into mine. They would call their girlfriends drunk and play romantic music over the phone. They would take the shitty watches at night to watch our backs. You know, they were selfless people. They're gone. They're not only, you know, suddenly gone out of your life, but there's no, hey, sit with this grief. You know, here's a counselor to talk about some of this shit. You're like, no, they're stripped out of your life and they're gone.
Yeah.
And it's not even that. You can't even process their loss or death, but I wish I could speak to the girlfriends so I could at least tell them how amazing they were in life. Mm-hmm. But I don't even know where they are. They're probably married now and have a whole different life. But it's a weird thing. And I imagine people that have been in the military and experienced some of that loss in a war zone far off might have a semblance of that, but my world was at home.
Yeah, it's strange that you and these girlfriends felt the same grief. You both loved these men.
Yeah, and they're gone, and we can't share it. I can't speak to them because I have to keep going.
Yeah, And
so they're just left behind.
ruminating on that grief is probably risky for you as well, right? Like just even security wise, right? It makes you vulnerable.
It makes me, you don't see the car next to you with the newspaper over the AK-47.
And you tell someone about it, and then you lose your weapon, or you lose your ability to patrol. And then if you lose your ability to patrol, your ability to do missions, now you've lost your community, you've lost your purpose.
You're disarmed, and now you're not only disarmed, but now people know that where you were and what you did, so you're a target as well.
Yeah, well, it doesn't make the pain go away, but at least you're with people.
Yeah,
and if they take you out of what you're doing, then you're alone with the pain, and that's the scariest place of all.
You don't have purpose anymore. And when you're in that space and you don't have anything, and you only have this purpose, and you're a child of fucking abandonment trauma.
Jump out the window. That's it.
Yeah. Suicide was always on the table for me back then. Like I legit thought about it, and I saw many of my friends go down that path.
And what pulled you away from it?
I was looking for that bullet that people kept singing about, you know?
In the streets.
Yeah, I wanted to find that. Like I took a lot of risky shit jobs.
The death has to be for a purpose.
Yeah, I thought if I was going to do it, I would rather have it done for something, I guess.
You hear this thing, suicide by cop. There's people that do this in society now, where they feel so much hopelessness and desperation, they'll go do something crazy, just to have someone take them out. The burnout is fucking go out in a flame of glory. That whole aspect of it. I think I had some romantic notion of that, I guess, but I wanted to die in such a way where my funeral would be a party. Right.
Again,
if you take yourself out, it's not going to be that type of celebration.
No. But it was still on the table though. Like I was,
because the pain is immense.
It's deepest, blackest void.
Any other way to medicate during the day? Like, are you drinking throughout the day?
Yeah.
Were some of the guys doing like Xanax or any other type of like drug?
So yeah, drugs were there, Later on, I got into a command position, and I would supervise drug testing. And I remember telling one of the guys, like, "Congratulations, you passed the drug test, but you're also pregnant."
Yeah.
So it's Mexico, There's ways around shit. I'm like, cocaine, other shit was there. Alcohol was my thing.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get stimulated. I wanted to die every night.
Yeah. Disassociate.
Yeah, I wanted to leave. So for me, it was alcohol. But yeah, people were doing shit. People were destroying their marriages if they had them because risk.
Are you noticing physical things within your body, or actually the inverse? Are you not noticing physical things? I know we talked about it a little bit before, but one of the common symptoms of disassociation is literally losing contact with your physical sensation.
Yeah. So, I'm in a place that is cold as shit. Why am I not wearing a jacket?
I forgot to eat for 2 days.
Yeah, I forgot to eat for a few days. I should be drinking water. What the fuck am I doing? Basically, you're that, and also destructive, horrible relationships with women who are completely shouldn't be with. So you basically, like, what I noticed as far as a pattern, like with everybody there, not just me, is this self-destructive tendencies outside of work or within work, because I don't know, there's no processing grief, there's no processing trauma. Keep it to yourself, shut up about it, be a macho, tienes que ser hombre, aguántate, nobody cares, You don't trust anybody, you don't trust them outside and you don't trust them inside. So you'd see self-destructive tendencies. Suicide, again, like people leave with suicide constantly. It was like you would see them smiling and everything's fine. I remember one of the guys that I lost to suicide. I drove him. We were working a bodyguarding detail together, and I remember hanging out with him that day before he shot himself. We went to an Oxxo, which is like a 7-Eleven in Mexico. And I was calling somebody over the phone, having an argument, like a girl, you know? And he said, stay here. What do you want from the store? And he went out and got me some things that I needed, you know, paid for it himself. Like, yeah, thank you, man. Like, I appreciate it. Laughed about some bullshit on the radio, talked some gossip about some shit at work. He got on a plane, flew to Mexicali, and shot himself that night.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, and again, also the threat. I was outside too. People are trying to kill you outside too. So it's like it's a wild space.
Yeah, I've heard people describe that peace before finality.
Yeah,
and I've known people sort of tangentially that have gone through this kind of process of like, you know, final termination, ending their life. And the common thread is that there's a semblance of peace in the days before.
Yeah.
Because there's a solution.
For me, it's peace, but also like weird kindness, almost like a saintly kindness to some of them. Like when you, maybe it's just hindsight, I guess, but they shine, I guess, in a way. Like if I could go back and now I know what it is. Like I've had a few people in my life at this stage of my life in that process, and I'm always fucking running to try and, because I know what that is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, when you're going through it and you're going like, oh, he's doing great. He's doing better. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember having some of these guys basically go through a period of like, you could see that they're fucked up, and all of a sudden it seems like they're doing better, you know? And yeah, it's because they're at peace with the decision.
Yeah, there's a way out.
Yeah.
Can you describe, it seems like a lot of the missions you've described thus far are sort of reactionary. It's, you know, something happened and then it's reacting to the scene. It's trying to, you know, have presence on the scene to try to diffuse the situation. Is there any offensive measures?
Yeah.
And can you describe some of those? And what are some of the risky situations that you're voluntarily putting yourself in?
Yeah, I mean, number one, I'm choosing to protect and be next to the biggest targets in our institutions. Mm-hmm. So I'm next to leadership constantly as a bodyguard, and later on as a team leader. Mm-hmm. You know, so I'm one of the guys that shows up into these situations where there's one of this. I remember the first one of its kind. There was a convoy of vehicles reported leaving downtown into the Via Rápida towards the east of the city. And they just picked up 2 people. And there's nobody responding. And we show up. And I'm in the back of a pickup truck with an AR-15 with 3 magazines. 2 of them in my back pocket and 1 of them in the rifle. And a guy in front driving. I was in the passenger seat, but I said, it's probably better if I'm in the back of the truck. It's more mobility and I have a good platform to shoot from. It's only that when we get there that we realize that we're the only responding unit. The other guys got lost in traffic, or I don't know what happened, or maybe they were freaked out by the situation. We were just running into facing this horrible, dangerous thing. We heard on the radio, they're going through this street. Like, this street? This is the street we're on. And as soon as I said that in my mind, the convoy starts driving across slowly. What saved us is that they were in armored vehicles, so they couldn't roll the windows down. So they knew they were safe. But one of them, with a mask on, pulled up a Draco. It's like a small AK, and said, like basically, this is what you want, you know? I had my AR pointed upwards at this point, and I remember seeing the driver of the car slowly try to raise the radio to say something. I said, don't move an inch. He didn't raise the radio. They kept screaming at us over the radio, like to report back. They gave us a pass. They drove by. We didn't give chase because it's just us. What are you going to do? We would, as we got more and more experienced and we got more and more supplied and trained and had leadership that knew what the fuck they were doing, we started organizing ourselves in basically small groups, and we would patrol the city in groups, move around the city, respond to things. There was an investigative side of it, an intelligence unit. So we'd go after specific targets out there.
And just to kind of shed a little bit more light on the force that you're going against, when people say cartel, it means a lot of different things.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of Americans are like, oh, there is the cartel.
Yeah.
And El Chapo's in charge of the cartel.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the way I think Americans think about it. That's not the case.
No, so like the Sinaloa cartel is a bunch of small factions allied themselves together that are operating out of a single state. But some of them fight between each other, and some of their interests are different. So what you saw in Tijuana back then, early 2000s, was a faction of the Sinaloa cartel led by a man called El Tres Letras, El Teo, and a few lieutenants that he worked with. And he used to work for the Tijuana cartel, the Mariano Felix cartel, and he flipped sides. And as he did, he took a substantial fraction of that group with him and basically created a divide and a war. This is the richest drug market on the planet. It's worth killing everybody for. And they had all of the bodies that they wanted. This is a Tijuana that is coming out of an economic depression with a bunch of kids that have no opportunities. Perfect for them. On one side. And on the other side, the old factions of the Ariano Felix cartel and Tijuana cartel still fighting for that territory, who had cops on their payroll, and the Sinaloa cartel had other cops on the payroll. So you would go to different parts of the city, and the different cops, municipal cops in these areas, were working for one or the other cartel. So it was a free-for-all. It's so complex. The politics, who they pay, who's on their side, who's not on their side. So you would go into a place where the municipal police was on the side of one cartel, but the army was on the side of another. Like that type of insanity. It's still the case, even worse now. But back then it was not as apparent, but you started figuring it out slowly.
And they are getting the majority of their drugs from South America, from Colombia.
When I was active, this is early 2000, 2004, 2016, 17. The main drug of choice in the area was meth. So giant quantities of high potency meth were being produced all over the country.
In Mexico.
And a lot of it was being trafficked into the U.S., specifically California, through Tijuana, for example.
Was the production controlled by the cartels as well?
Yeah, production, precursors, all the supply was controlled by different cartel organizations all across the country. And also cocaine. Right. A shit ton of cocaine.
In Mexico itself.
Mexico basically receiving it from Colombia, setting up supply and security all the way down in Colombia. Right now, if you go to Colombia, there's Mexican cartel presence all the way down there, like at the source. But when I was active, it wasn't that specific, but you would see breaks directly from Colombia showing up in cars that were about to be loaded up to go into San Diego, for example. So what you saw was this massive force that was there to supply this giant drug market across the border.
And Tijuana being a geographically advantageous position because it's so close to the U.S.
Yeah, and also it's a place where the border wall is really built up and security is really built up, but there's an unknown number of drug tunnels underneath them that are supplying any major hit or find of drugs that we would have didn't affect anything as far as prices on the other side of the border.
Wow.
So whatever we were doing wasn't even putting a dent into the supply. Yeah. So it was obvious that whatever was being fought over and killed over in that area was making somebody some absurd amount of money. And also there was interest on both sides of that issue that wanted that to continue.
When you say both sides, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's American interest were probably there to, if you look at the conflict in Mexico right now, you see the Sinaloa cartel, you see the New Generation cartel, and like some of the things that I saw, like after 9/11 and stuff like that. Do you think the U.S. government is going to reach out to the Mexican government to secure its border? Or do you think it's going to maybe get involved with cartel interests to secure the border in other ways? Who knows? I don't know. It seems that way when you look at kind of the politics and the structure of some of these things. I mean, we coming off, when I was active, I learned about Fast and the Furious through CNN.
Right.
And only after some of my friends were shot and killed with FN-57 pistols that were part of that program that the Bush administration started.
Can you describe the Fast and the Furious operations?
Sure.
And what exactly those are?
I can't describe them from a U.S. perspective, but what I know about them is that the U.S. basically, through the ATF and through a program that was started under the Bush administration, observed massive straw purchases of guns and civilian-grade weaponry in the United States that then were walked across the border and are supplied to cartels, very specifically the Sinaloa cartel, into Mexico. And they were basically let walk through in full participation, in full awareness of the U.S. government. And also it's now come out that the Mexican government also knew some of these things. So in for all intents and purposes, the U.S. armed a single cartel in Mexico for a period.
Right. At the very least was aware of it.
It was aware of it, and it let things cross and get into their hands until...
Enabled it.
Yeah, they enabled it until they were found out because one of those guns was used to kill one of their agents, Ryan Terry, which is such a wild thing to kind of think about. I raised around $4,000 to $5,000 for the Ryan Terry Foundation through a charity thing that I did in the U.S. in my current life up here as an instructor. So, and I did it to kind of as a way to say, hey, I raised this money for the Ryan Terry Foundation, and because of these guns. But hey, I would like to talk about some of my friends that were killed by some of these guns in Mexico, and some of the people that were killed down there that you will never learn about. One of them was coming out of their house with his wife and his kid in the back seat, and two guys showed up with FN-57 pistols that were part of that operation. Shot both of them. His wife and him died, and his daughter lost his arm. She's still alive somewhere out there. We don't hear about them in the hearings. Mm-hmm. When Eric Holder is walking around somewhere out there in California, who is not only knew about this operation, but basically supported it. No, I don't know if that is in the back of his head or his conscious, but it's something that happened. A bunch of people died in Mexico with those guns. Guns don't kill people; people kill people. I understand that aspect, but they were supplied with specialty weapons they didn't have before. FN-57 pistols are a high velocity, short round that will go through soft body armor, like the ones we were wearing.
And do they have a motivation on the record for why the U.S. knew about these weapons transfers and enabled them to happen? Can you speculate personally why you think that they would do this?
Destabilization. Horrible American foreign policies. Mm-hmm. This is what the U.S. does and has done in the past. A lot of people in the U.S. seem to have this idea of this notion of Mexico having its own issues and its own problems, and it should solve its own issues. Well, with recent declassified documents coming out, we've learned that at least four of the presidents in Mexico's history from the 60s on to modern times were on the CIA's payroll. Including some people that were involved in a massacre after during the Olympics in Mexico that was probably related to its fight against communism. And they killed a shit ton of students in a square.
Wow. And
he was a CIA employee.
Wow.
And then further on, other presidents have been revealed to also have been directly on the payroll. So the U.S.'s influence in Mexico and its foreign policy in Mexico has not been the best. And I think that Fast and the Furious program and some of the shit that went on during that time has been another iteration of that foreign policy.
Right. And if the Mexican government and presumably the president of Mexico at the time was aware of Fast and the Furious and aware of these weapons coming in, I can only imagine the reason they would turn a blind eye to it is because they are complicit and working within
so
CIA.
So like people out there that'll then listen to this, I am on the ground, working. I don't know. Like I think I was put through polygraph testing every year. My financials were viewed with a magnifying glass. I was put through psychological evaluations, and I had to do these things called confidence exams through a program called C3 down there, constantly for years while I was there. And the guy all the way at the top of the security apparatus at a federal level, Martinez Luna, who is currently in prison here in the United States, he was in charge of everything, and he was working for the cartels.
Wow.
At the highest level.
And what was the purpose of the polygraph testing?
They were trying to see if we're up to no good. They were trying to see if we were trustworthy with the information they were providing to us, if they were trusted, because we had access to very sensitive shit. So they were trying to keep us honest.
But certainly some of the guys you were with flipped and they got bit, right?
They would get to a point where the price was met.
But would they still take the polygraphs?
They would, and some of them would fail it.
And what would happen if you failed it?
You would get fired, and you would get unemployed, and you would figure out other things. But later on in the history of the country, and that one of the big reasons why I had to leave that job, is a lot of them collectively sued the federal government for being fired.
Wrongfully terminated.
And they determined that the polygraph exam and a lot of the confidence testing didn't fit the criteria for justified firing. So all of a sudden you find yourself in an office with all these known associates of cartels working within our institution are now back with back pay in the office. And you're like, what are you doing here?
You spend the last 5 years collecting unemployment, and I've been out in the field getting shot at and risking my life.
And being on the path, just not fucking up and not doing stupid shit, and all of a sudden you're you're back and you're here.
This is prodigal son type shit. Like,
yeah, it's like what the fuck am I doing? Like, why am I still here?
Wow, that's frustrating.
It was devastating, I think, for me. I did operational work for a long while, and then they sent me to work for a governor. Mm-hmm. So I worked as the head of security for Governor Osuna. Great man. I've seen politics up close in other parts of my life. Great man, amazing family, honest. He was one of the good ones. He was very much a hot potato, target. So that's why they sent us to watch him. Mm-hmm. I saw politics through him in a way, basically just seeing how things worked. A smart man, came from nothing type dude.
What were your preconceptions about politics, and how was it shaken?
Everybody's corrupted. Everybody's bad. Everybody, all that shit. It's Mexico. There's nobody's on the up and up.
Do you think that's just a Mexican thing, or is that a?
In Mexico, I understand there's corruption up here. Mm-hmm. I've seen it, but at least they hide it.
Right.
Down there you'll see a dude, driving around with a tiger in his backseat, or somebody just blatantly just being corrupt as shit in front of everybody. And
they kind of hide it here.
Yeah.
You can still buy stocks and things like that, and you're like, hang on a second.
Yeah, and I know there's a few people in Congress that are millionaires without any explanation, or some people that can't function with their brains, but somehow they're still being elected for public office.
Right, or they have a speaking fee at a thing for $1 million for a 5-minute speech.
Or they buy art.
Of course, yeah.
But down there, it's like legit. Here's the money. This is the cartel boss. Let me take a picture with him.
Oh, okay.
So it's
much more obvious.
It's a different thing down there, I guess. But my experience going, being a bodyguard and working for his security and kind of seeing politics from the inside, I saw people trying to make a difference, at least for a while. You know, I got to see an effort was made. Tijuana was the most dangerous city on the planet. And that's my hometown.
Yeah.
So.
And it wasn't always that way. And that's pretty disheartening to see.
It was killing me. So I felt invested in that. And also I have family that lives there. So it was a whole thing.
Were you ever offered by any cartel bosses or cartel associates to flip?
That's how it works. Nobody's gonna offer you directly. It was always through other people or through people that were working in your same unit.
Has it happened?
Yeah.
And how would it go? Like, take me through process.
You're in a leadership position of some sort, and you're in charge of certain things, certain operations happening somewhere, or you're next to somebody who's in charge, and they say, "Hey, if you move to this part of the city, you mind calling me? I need to tell some people, and there's money in there for you." Or, "Hey, you wanna go work after work? Hey, you want to earn some extra money?" Small. You climb into, they make you jump into their pocket just a little bit. But once you're in there, there's no coming out.
It's like a drug. It's literally like, hey, do you want to do a little? Like drug dealers would get people hooked on crack.
But if you're a cop, so let's say, "Hey, Ed, you want to join in on this?" Sure. Well, now they have that over you. They own you. And also...
For a small fee.
So you're working for these guys over here, and now you're their guy. And if somebody in the institution finds out that you're their guy, well, if they're working for somebody else, they say, "Hey, that guy over there, yeah, is working for those dudes and helping them." Cool. That's why you see a lot of cops getting killed in their houses or assassinated in the street, or like after work they get shot. It's because they're working for one cartel and the other one doesn't like that or wants to affect the interest, so they go and kill your guys.
The perception is, oh, these cops are getting killed because they're cops.
No, some of them might be killed because they're cops in the wrong place in the wrong time, but a lot of them are like, "Hey, oh, these guys are getting killed because they're working for interest of one side versus the other, and they were found out and they got shot."
And why do these guys flip, or why do they?
Money.
It's purely money. Is there ever other interests?
Money, most money. I mean, it's Mexico. Some of us were highly paid, but not all of them.
What prevented you from taking on, quote, extra work or working with cartels?
I was a punk rock kid. I didn't need shit. I was a minimalist. I didn't need anything. For me, it's great to be left alone in my house, playing PlayStation, not doing shit. You know. Mm-hmm. There was nothing about the glamorous life. I didn't want a fucking new car. I didn't want any of that shit. I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids, so I didn't have any hunger or need. A lot of these guys that were corrupted had 2 kids, 3 kids, a wife that wanted a better house, and they were working in a job. Back then, you couldn't get a credit card as a cop in Mexico. Because who's going to pay off your debt when you get killed?
Wow.
So you can get credit for a house or a car. You would have to get it through your wife. You couldn't get credit as a cop. Risky. MetLife told us, MetLife ran our health, our life insurance policy, and I don't like one of their agents told us this. I don't know if it's true or not, but he told us like, "You guys are currently one of the riskiest jobs on the planet. You know, your life expectancy shit is like, So like, yeah, it's hopeless. Imagine for cops in Mexico aren't unionized. You can't complain about hours there, so there's no extra overtime pay. That doesn't exist. You go to work till you go to work, and you sleep 2 hours and come back. It's dehumanizing. You're worse than an orc. You know, that's what sometimes we call ourselves orcs because that's how you feel. Not only that, but society spits on you. I mean, to this day, I'll tell people where I worked. And judging the group that I was in by who was there now and some of the history after it just became degraded into this corrupt institution, I'm spit on. People talk shit. "Oh, you were part of that. Fuck Ed, you're horrible like them." You know, but there were good people there at some point.
Yeah, my friend was telling me that the state police were particularly brutal in the time that he was in Tijuana.
Yeah,
and you know, like the local police were kind of like whatever, they'd be paid off, you can kind of negotiate with them, but the state police were very...
It was a gang.
Very ruthless. Were you there in the time that it was kind of transitioning?
So, yeah. So, again, people started coming back that were fired. Institutions that were built to keep us trustworthy were taken out, and politics changed. So Leizaola left to Juarez to do the same thing he did for Tijuana, and he succeeded there. He lowered the crime rate and stuff like that. So he left us without kind of direction, I guess. So other people came on board, other prior military officers, to try and replicate his things, but they weren't him, you know? So, but slowly but surely, things degraded. People come on. Again, people started getting really corrupted. You know, there was nobody cleaning things up from the inside anymore. There was no fear. And yes, it turned into a... If your friend is talking about the brutality of it, he probably lived through the 2012 era of it, when it started degrading into what it then turned into. It's the brutality, the fear of them now is because, you know, again, there's no more filters there. There's no more eyes inside. It's just a free for all. And what happens with police units, police groups, and politics in general, every 5 years the federal government changes and everything changes. Names change, uniforms change, badges change. They just call it a different thing, you know?
But what doesn't change?
Well, I mean, anything that worked in the previous administration that was celebrated by the people gets vilified. So one day we're being thanked and we're being told, like, hey, thank you for like bringing back peace to the city. Like, great that Tijuana is no longer on the most dangerous cities list. You can go out at night again and have fun and drink and shit like that, not worried about getting abducted or shot up. But with the peace comes, well, now we don't need you, or now you're too brutal. We don't need this militarized police anymore. You need to tone it down now. Now you're torturers. Now you're evil, murderous people. Like we don't need that. You're villains again, because you're not needed anymore.
Right. And while there's so much turnover and, you know, change with the police, the cartels are never changing.
No, they're changing in their tactics. So like when I was active, they would dress like police officers and clone units and shit like that.
But in terms of leadership,
in terms of leadership, you would see every now and then they would change too. But there was always, I mean, as far as the Sinaloa cartel, there's always been one specific head on their end. So El Mayo Zambada has been there forever. So yeah, there's no change there. But on our side, it's a chicken not only without a head, but they put a different head on it every 5 years, and the brain goes with it, you know.
When did you start to lose faith in the program?
What's up, guys? We're going to take a break from this conversation because you need to take the bad out of your habits. Yeah. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You're out with the boys, 2 a.m., you're drinking, throwing down a couple cold ones. Who knows? Maybe some Bud Lights, maybe some Tall Boys, if you know what I'm saying. And you're doing a couple more and you're hanging out outside the bar, and all of a sudden someone pulls out a bad habit. You know what I'm talking about. One of those little good ones. You know what I mean? They pull out one of these little skinny boys. And you're like, you know what? Maybe I'll take a hit. Maybe I'll try it out. And that is your mistake. You do that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all of a sudden you're hooked. And that is a bad habit. I'm telling you, if you know me, I don't like to put artificial stuff in my body. I don't like to put crap into my body. I'm trying to be as health conscious as I can. And that's why I got one of these. Yes. Maybe you've never seen it before. Maybe you have one in your hand right now. This is called a Fume. It's an award-winning device that changed my life. With Fume, I don't have to change my habit. I can just take the bad out of the habit. Instead of electronics, it's completely natural. Instead of vapor, it's using flavored air. Yes, it has a little essential oil cartridge right here that goes inside the Fume, and you are just breathing in crisp, cool, flavored air. This is actually the mint flavor. This is the one I like. And then instead of harmful chemicals, it's all natural, delicious flavors. I'm telling you, man, it is a nice, sleek design. It's something that's nice to like fidget with. Listen to this right here, baby. Yeah, I'm doing that all day. Even if I'm not taking a puff of this thing, I'm just spinning it. I love that. So it's sleek, it's cool, it looks cool, it's super discreet. You can travel with it, you can go anywhere in the world with it. I'm telling you, around the studio, we're hitting these things. It's just fun, and it's a good way to keep the habit, but just take the bad out of it. You know what I mean? I know what you're thinking. You're like, flavored air, what does that even mean? And then I went, oh, okay, I get it. I completely get it. I like essential oils. I always use essential oils before I sleep. And with Fume, especially this mint cartridge, it's just a refreshing deep breath that makes me feel calm, cool, collected, takes my anxiety away. It's awesome. So here's what I want you to do. If you're interested in joining over the 100,000 customers that have taken the bad out of their habit, I want you to go to TryFume, that's TryFum.com, and use the code Gagnon, G-A-G. And I want you to check out the Journey Pack. If you use the code Gagnon when you check out the Journey Pack is going to give you everything you need to get started on your journey of taking the bad out of your habits. Stop putting harmful chemicals into your body. Try to be a little more health conscious, especially if you're putting down brews, right? You don't want to just double up. So you can go to TryFume, T-R-Y-F-U-M, use the code Gagnon, G-A-G-N-O-N for 10% off your order today. Now let's get back to the episode.
As soon as Lee Zawala left,
Leadership goes.
The leadership went, so that I didn't see any clear leadership. I saw a few other people that were still doing the holding out, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of them started to leave. I got a lot of training, and I was very specialized. I remember seeing True Detective and somebody saying, "Be careful what you get good at." You know, it's like we got really good at a specific thing, and a lot of them figured that they could make more money either working for one side or the other, or going into the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the talent started leaving. That's why I started noticing an institution that was respected and was pretty great nationally started turning into what it is now. And people talk about the state police in Tijuana. They're horrible, right? So I started seeing that being lost. Leadership changed when I worked for the governor as the head of security for the governor for a period, and that was great. Then I was back on the street, operational. And in the office of the director was somebody that was completely compromised. I still had vestiges of what was before, and we worked together, and we try to keep shit, normalized, I guess, and keep on the path. And then somebody basically changed everything and pulled me in one day and asked me, "Do you want to play ball with us?" And I was like, "What do you mean us? Like this is changing. This is how we're gonna work. How about it, Ed?" And people who are still there probably, won't let me lie about this. I said, "Sure." I went out of the office, printed out my resignation there and then, took a big trash bag from the service area, put my vest, radio, everything. I handed in my MP5 and the magazines, my gun, everything. That same day, I resigned. I just realized that there's no fucking way I could stay here.
Wow.
It was a few weeks after my mother died. And also that was it was like everything happened at once. My mother was psychiatric for years, like psychiatric issues, and they got really bad towards the end. So I was not only taking care of a 2-year-old and trying to hold a marriage together that was, there's no way I could save it.
Doomed.
But my mom left after a year and a half of torturous psychiatric. I had to contain her. She would wander off. She would go violent. While that was going on at home, I also was struggling with my marriage, and I also was struggling with work. And I was going on doing horrible shit. That all of it was like compiled. My ex-wife was American. My daughter was American. Because it's Tijuana, the relationship. And I didn't want to immigrate. I wanted to see things through, but I had no choice. My mom left. They gave me 2 days off.
Wow.
So, rage started growing inside of me.
Yeah, of course.
so I left that day and I crossed the border with my kid next to me, 2-year-old. There's a picture of me the first day I'm there. She's hugging my head. Nothing. It's just some money in my pocket, you know. Relationships that I created and developed during my time active on the U.S. side. Since I have clear English, and I worked a lot of liaison work with people from the U.S. that would go down there and they would talk or cross-train with a lot of people, shared a bunch of information from both sides of the border. I already had like an anonymous blog that I would run. Mm-hmm. I would go by Edwood7 on Tumblr. Mm. So I would share pictures of stuff that I would see, cartel tactics. One of the first drug mule drones found in Tijuana. I took a picture of it, posted up on my blog. Wow. So it was posting up some stuff that was kind of wild for people.
Real cutting edge, forefront shit.
Yeah. I mean, there was no cartel reporting. There's none of that shit back then. It was like just random shit you would find online. But I was an English speaker that could write in English, that was speaking to an American audience, not reporting, but just showcasing some of the stuff that I would see. Mm-hmm. And some of it was picked up by media and some of it was shared and stuff like that. By this point, I was trying to figure out, you know, what my next move was. And I didn't know.
Did you have a visa?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did. Yeah. I had a visa. But again, I didn't want to immigrate, you know. That was never my intention. And then I found myself in this situation where I quit this job. What else can I do? What else can I do in Mexico?
Right.
People that need to understand that if you're a cop in Mexico and if you quit and or are fired from an institution, you can't be hired by any other institution unless that you have some sort of connection.
Why?
It was part of the law back then.
Oh, really?
So if you want to be in the state police or the federal police, the first thing they ask you, have you ever been part of another police institution? And if you say yes, you're denied.
Automatic.
So idiotic.
Right.
And it created a shit ton of people that the cartels then hired.
Oh, wow. So there's former state police that are just straight into the cartel.
A shit ton. Military, state, federal police that are all working now on the other side. Yeah.
Wow. Working within their specialized positions. Security.
You name it. I mean, I train the U.S. government in different ways. I get hired by U.S. government, federal agencies, and military forces. And there's people out there who might listen to this that can look up on my Instagram account or some of the social media that I post up, and or some of the people that have written about some of the training that I do. They're surprised by the sophistication and they're shocked by how unknown it is. It's like, where'd you learn all this shit, Ed? Through work, and also some of you guys trained us to do this work in Mexico, and I'm just coming back with the experience. Where are the rest of you guys?
Everywhere.
I don't know. Yeah.
What are some of the riskiest missions that you did, and what was the closest you say you had ever been to death?
I mean, it was a daily thing. You know, we were getting shootouts. Going into horrible shit. I was there for one of the riots at the Tijuana Prison. And I've been through a lot of shit before that, and I don't want to talk about those. But I think that one was interesting because of the chaos and what it represented. It's the Tijuana Prison. If anybody's ever seen Get the Gringo with Mel Gibson, it's basically a fictional movie about a Tijuana prison. It's like a prison. The prison in Tijuana used to be called El Pueblito. There was like a town inside of it with video stores and Chinese food and pizza, and people would live in the prison with their families and shit like that. It was corrupt. It was a symbol of the corruption of Tijuana. And at some point, they figured it out and they tore it all down, and they like legit started enforcing shit in there. But it's Mexico. It's prison. they figured out ways of corrupting it. There was a giant riot that erupted there. And if you see the prison, it's in the middle of the urban center of Tijuana. So the riot started, the municipal police were called, the military, like it was all hands on deck to contain this prison, because if all these fuckers break out, it's going to be chaos all over the city. So I got there, and it was an inferno. Yeah. People being burned inside of the prison. You can smell it on the outside. Shooting going on from inside the prison to the outside, from the outside to the inside. The family members of the prisoners rioting outside, Nobody really in control. It was the closest I've ever been to like an apocalypse, I think, of a sort. Women outside crying for their family members on the inside, and also clawing and trying to kill you while you're trying to contain people trying to get out of it.
And what started this riot?
Internal cartel politics, people trying to figure out how to make a massive breakout to hide the fact they're going to break out few key people, and just people taking advantage of it and turning it into a whole scenario.
And how long did it go on for?
It was 2 nights that it flared up. But the biggest one was when it was like during the day that led into the night, and the families rioted on the outside. There's still video on YouTube of it. In one of the videos, the head of the municipal police of Tijuana shows up and says, "Hey, calm down. Calm down. They're using less lethal rounds. Calm down." And the family members come over with a bunch of spent 308s and 223 rounds. And everybody was shooting inside and out. It was chaos. It's like, these are less lethal. Throw them at them, It was chaos. In the midst of all that, though, I was next to a Humvee that the Army had, and they had a 50 cal on top of it. I don't know what that was. And I felt pretty safe there, right? All these Army guys there, and I knew some of them. So this is a good place to hide and wait to see, to observe here. And all of the rocks in the world started falling on us from the sky. These people are throwing rocks at us. And one of them let off several rounds of his rifle next to me, a G3 rifle. It's big battle rifles that the Army used to carry down there. I was on the radio observing, doing my deal, basically reporting back to the people that were in charge of me, what was going on, basically live reporting shit for the people that were in charge. One of those rounds, so when this excitement, the full auto rifle went really close to basically blowing the top of my head off. And I was in the process of getting married. And trying to figure that out, trying to find new parts of my life. I had something to lose there and then. So I think that was a scary, close thing to me. I started to not want to die. And it fucked with me. I was like, I want to get married. I'm looking towards this relationship that I have now. And all of a sudden I'm there, and that's the first time I realized, hey, maybe I'm not all in.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, maybe I'm not all in.
This fuel that you had throughout your whole life in these very high stress, tense positions, all of a sudden there's a gap, there's a weak point. Yeah,
it's vulnerability.
Yeah.
And then my daughter was born. She's a gift. She's like the biggest gift in my life. But she took suicide off the table immediately. Like there's no way, So when I think, all the risky shit I did and all that stuff and all the events that I was around, that one was horrifying as far as the just the lack of control, the lack of it was chaos. And it just told me, like, it doesn't matter how much of an effort I do. It doesn't matter how well trained I am. It doesn't matter how much I'm professionalized. None of this is going to change the reality of where I am. This is just something that needs to play out completely independent of me. There's no way, there's nothing we can do. This is just the way things are. This is too big. This is larger than I am. And people are responsible on both sides, and it's free for all. Why am I willing to sacrifice my life for this? That's when I started questioning it, you know?
Did you start to empathize with any of the cartel members?
Yeah. I mean, there was there's a rapper who's a friend of mine, Conejo. If people have watched that tax collector movie, he's the villain in there. It's like he shows up as this new generation cartel member and, you know, challenges the LA Mexican mafia people. It's a cool movie, great movie, directed by David Ayer, great movie. He was arrested on murder charges in Tijuana when I was active. By the state police, and I was around for that arrest. So he had a pending charge in the U.S. and they wanted to extradite him. When he was arrested, he fit the bill of somebody who would parade in front of the cameras. You know, if you know Conejo, like I know him now as a friend, but back then, you know, you see him, he's like. He uses the picture of his at the office that we took of him as for his albums, which is great and it's beautiful. But when he was arrested at his house, set up surveillance on him. They tracked him down. He was not doing good things, you know. Probably he was working in Mexico. His family was around for his arrest, so that was hard for him. His kid. So I empathize with that. Since I could speak conversational and clear English, I listened to some of the conversations he was having and speaking all throughout his arrest. That was like my function. They stripped his T-shirt off for the picture so they could see the tattoos. There's a dead end tattoo on him. It's cool, you know. But they wanted to basically parade him in front of the press, and I know that was hard for him.
To be used.
I empathize, even though, like, whatever, like, you could call him whatever you wanted. Like, he was this, he was that, and them and us. It was, I could empathize a little bit. And I observed it, and I was in the periphery of that, and I saw him. He saw me. And then he was extradited, and he was gone. And I was continuing on my path, and we just completely different life paths. And I resigned. I went to the U.S. I started looking for my opportunities and work. As soon as I got here, I started working. You know, started figuring things out. Went through my immigration process during when Trump was elected, which was basically made my immigration process not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere along the lines, I met director David Ayer. Amazing guy. Deep conversations with that. He's the one that inspired me to go on the path of sobriety because he's sober too. So I remember meeting him after I was on Rogan and got a little bit known. You know, like we just talked, had a conversation, and he's like, "Hey, think about don't drink anymore. It'll help. Sobriety will help." It's like, oh, somebody I respect told me that, and I started on the path. At some point, he was like, "Hey, I'm coming down to Tijuana. You should meet this guy that I know." It's like, "Oh, sure." And I saw him, like, that's Conejo. Like, I know him. We've been in the same room before. And all of a sudden, I find myself in this surreal place where it's, you know, we're going to get tacos with David. And Conejo's there, and we're talking about stories of Tijuana. And like, you were here for this? Yeah, I was here for that. We were over here. It's like, oh, and we started connecting. Be like, and then it dawned on us that at one point we were not on opposite sides. And now we're hanging out, eating tacos, laughing, sharing stories.
In America.
Yeah. In America and in Tijuana.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because he's completely exonerated of all they exonerated him on all charges. And we're living this weird afterlife. He's an actor now. He's a musician. Great. His spiritual life is very present in his life, just like mine is. He has a daughter. I have a daughter. And then it dawned on me, like, none of it mattered. Like, all the work we did, all the fucking shit we did, all the blood, all the effort, all of it. And we're both on opposite sides of shit, and now we're just hanging out and showing up for each other, you know?
Does he feel the same way, that it didn't matter?
Like, well, it mattered because we're here now for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the conclusion we got. Both of us got. Like, we were so committed to that in life, but now we're on the other side of it. And now we're committed to this one.
Mm.
And in the past one, we were enemies. And in this one, he calls me and I show up. That's wild. That was a wild ride to get to kind of to encounter with him. Yeah, empathy. I started seeing and realizing that these people and the training that I had and the way that we were programmed was us versus them. Mugrosos, malandros, all the bad words, all the derogatory words. But like, wait, we grew up with some of these people. You know, hey, when they get killed, they do the funerary service here. When we get killed, funerary service over here. And we have a truce because we're burying people, so chill out. They go to the same places to eat sometimes. When I came to the U.S., I was hosted by an amazing family during my immigration process. A Navy SEAL by the name of Dan Stanchfield hosted me during my immigration process. My brother, I love him. I owe him my life. And his wife, Kelly, she's an actress. She was Nip Tuck. She was Kimber and Nip Tuck. They were my host family. They kept me safe and figured out, like they were there through the whole process of me figuring out my citizenship and just the process of being here. It was the being in Mexico, being in charge of 80 people and having radios and cell phones and grenade launchers and rifles and all this stuff. And all of a sudden I'm in a avocado orchard in the middle of Southern California and everything's quiet. Yeah. And nobody's calling me. And all these people that I would die and kill for are out there somewhere, just lost to my perception. And I'm now have to figure out what I'm going to do next, you know? They were great. They basically started me off on this process of figuring out what I'm going to do with it. And they were instrumental in saying, well, what do you have to offer? Nothing. What do I have to offer? I'm very good at a few things, but what do I have to offer? But they made me figure it out, you know? I have experience. I can sell it. How? Train people how to do and survive some of the environments that you worked in. Okay. Use the experience that you had to help others in different ways. So I started figuring out how to put all of this in the context of a training experience for people. Hey, I'm going to travel with my family to this weird country. What do I need to know about operating and working in a place like that is unfriendly and you don't have the tools that you would want? Well, I did that every day in my life sometimes. So I could sit down and tell you that,
right,
and show you that from a perspective of experience.
Do you remember the first day that you were taken out of this heightened, anxious state?
What's up, guys? We're going to take a break really quick because you need an attorney. That's right. You might have got rear-ended. Maybe you slipped. Maybe you fell. Maybe you got hit by a car while you were riding your bicycle down the street. That happened to me. And I was so frustrated because I had to go online and I searched attorney in my area and 100 things came up. and I couldn't figure out who was real, who was shady, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. And then anytime I talked to someone, it took so long to go back and forth just to submit my claim. And then on top of that, they had all these fees and they tried to nickel and dime me before they even took my case. It was infuriating. I chose just to do nothing. That's not what you should do, because finding an attorney can be very hard. But you know what's not hard? Finding an attorney is hard, but hiring Morgan & Morgan is easy. Yes, Morgan & Morgan is America's largest personal injury law firm. They have over 100 offices nationwide and over 800 attorneys waiting to hear from you. So there's two things that I'm going to tell you that's great about Morgan & Morgan. Submitting a claim has never been easier. 8 clicks or less. It's like ordering something on Amazon or like Uber Eats or something like that. From your couch, you can submit a claim if you want to, and they can check it out. No charge, just to see your claim. The second thing, their fee is free unless they win your case. That's right. You don't spend a dime unless they win your case. Their interest is your interest. That's right. So I'm just saying, if you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. And the way to do that is to go to forthepeople.com. That's forthepeople.com/Gagnon. That's correct. Gagnon. Or you can dial pound law from your cell phone. That's pound 529. This is a paid advertisement. I'm just saying, if anything bad ever happens to you, heaven forbid, these are the guys you can check out. They're good guys. Stop blowing all your stacks with these other attorneys. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah.
Like, you're in this world for basically your entire life that is just like tension, anxiety, stress, fight or flight.
Yeah.
Every single moment is just high alert.
Yeah.
And that is exhausting to live in.
Yeah.
And then you get out of it, come to the US, and now you're in this,
Avocado orchard.
Is it peacefulness? Are you able to turn it off? Did you ever feel what?
So I'm still an alcoholic at this point.
Mm-hmm.
My marriage is suffering. So I cheat again. I don't want to have people like think that I was responsible for my marriage failing. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything to cause it, but I was absent. I was not there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was already kind of starting to crumble. But I was trying to basically do the best for my kid. So I remember having a moment where I was getting really drunk in this avocado orchard. I discovered craft beers. When I crossed the border, I remember going to the store the first night to shop for groceries, and going to this market and experiencing a whole aisle of craft beers.
Yeah.
And I just wanted some Tecate Roja. This was the red Tecates, and all of a sudden I find myself in this aisle of beers, and I buy 2 bottles of a beer, craft beer called Rasputin beer.
Yeah.
That has a very high alcohol content percentage.
And do you know you're an alcoholic at this time?
No.
Still not aware?
No. I didn't know I had a problem. I didn't know it was like a thing. So I remember buying those bottles and thinking, I'm going to drink 2 of them. I drank 4. And I had alcohol poisoning because it was too much. As I was going through the process of figuring out my American experience, I would go to a Circle K and buy Foster's cans, the oil cans.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I would go to that specific Circle K and I would just grab 3 of them to drink at night, fall asleep. Hungover for a whole day, and then on the 3rd day I would go back and buy them. One day I went into that same store, and the line where all the beers was empty, where all the Foster's beer cans was empty. So I went over and I asked the lady at the cashier, like, do you have any more Foster's beers cans? And she was on the phone and annoyed. She said, no, you finished them all. And I felt like shit. That was like a first crack, I think. I felt disgusted with myself.
That's when you started to realize, like, oh, this is not normal.
It's a problem, maybe,
Was your wife at the time saying anything about your drinking?
Yeah, he was screaming at me to change. I just
blocked it out.
I wasn't ready.
How did the disassociation manifest in the relationship?
I didn't talk about my shit. I avoided conflict. I wanted to keep everything leveled. I wanted safety there. And I didn't work through the shit. I didn't share this with her. She didn't know. Well, not anybody. Most people didn't know about the shit that I went through. It was this mystery.
Were you asking about her, or were you just completely numb?
I was numb. And my absence, basically distanced us.
Of course. You're just like a roommate, basically.
Yeah.
Like,
I hit the ground running. I'm an immigrant, and I got this opportunity, and I got my green card, and I have this amazing host family that's doing some amazing things to try and set me on the path. I start getting hired to train people. I'm being known more. I get quoted by certain news agencies, and I'm being very successful. And I go on Rogan. He follows my Instagram account. He's a fan. Some shit happens, and then all of a sudden, I didn't know what that was.
he reaches out to you?
Yeah, DMs me on Instagram. But mind you, I am oblivious to what that means. It's like I didn't watch it. I didn't understand the cultural significance of it.
Had you ever done a podcast before that?
No, never.
Wow.
So all of a sudden I'm in LA. The door opens. There's a Navy SEAL guy there who's a friend of mine who knows me. He's like, "What are you doing here?" It's like, I'm about to get into conversation. Oh, I'm not even going to do you the service of searching you, good sir. I don't have anything with me. I know what you teach. I know this. I don't have that. It was just a fun interaction. And I walk in there, and there's Joe. And we sit down and have a conversation. But for me, it was like, cool. I was on this thing, and it's cool to say, and it's probably going to help me a bit. It exploded. It was like my phone, email was full. Opportunity arrived, work, purpose, new purpose. Holy shit. What I talked about resonated with a bunch of people. Like I'm speaking of a reality that nobody has heard about from somebody like me from Mexico that went through it. I'm a veteran of the drug war, right? That aspect of it. I'm speaking for all my friends that died during the process that didn't get here, and I'm a mouthpiece for a lot of these people. I am a villain in Mexico for a lot of people because of where I worked. But here, I'm a weird story that I can share without that. And as that was happening, my marriage ended. So everything arrived and everything left. And it was like...
Was that your biggest moment of triumph?
I didn't understand. So I didn't view it as triumph, but I viewed it as, this is a new responsibility. And it's like, if anything, people know me, I don't like freedom. I view true freedom for me as responsibility. If you have responsibility, you're free. If you have responsibility, you're free to live life. So I just had this giant responsibility, and at the same time, my marriage ended. And it was devastating. Basically, my victory was that, to have a marriage and to have a kid, to have a family. That was my victory. And all of a sudden, I find myself with this other weird victory, and my true victory collapses and is fragmented. So it's almost like, shit, I can't even find peace here. Just...
How long were you married for?
About 8 years.
And did your parents go to the wedding?
Yeah. My mom was there for a bit, She was not well. I organized the wedding, the ceremony. A judge from the U.S. that I knew came down to marry us in Tijuana. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I did my best to make it a beautiful experience for both of us. Like I wrote my own vows and all that. You know, somewhere there's a video. It was a great moment for me. It's like I think that and the birth of my daughter were my best moments.
And your parents, they met your daughter as well.
Yeah, my mom got to see my daughter. My mom got to see her.
Was your mom proud?
Oh yeah, through everything she was going on inside of her, would go away when she would see my kid. She made it, you know. She got to see me have a kid, which I didn't perceive this, but later on it dawned on me. She didn't have faith in me that I was going to be able to have that, and she got to see her. My daughter doesn't remember her, but my mom got to meet her. She got to meet that part of me, and she left. Before she died, she actually had me take a few pictures with her, I don't have a lot of pictures of them together because I was all over the place back then. But I have a few pictures the day before she died of her and my daughter. So yeah, my victory was I got married. That's because my parents were married and they stayed married till one of them died. So I view that as a victory for them.
Of course.
And all of a sudden, mine ends and I take responsibility for it, you know, like everything in my life. It was because of we both had issues, but you know, I take responsibility for it. So
do you think through your marriage and the birth of your daughter, you got what you sought from your mom?
I thought that's what that was it. But it ended. And I leaned into the alcoholism even more. I was really bad then. And I was traveling across the country doing the training that I do. And you know, students out there that have been through that have gone through some of these training exercises and programs know what they are. They're highly stressful, and there's a lot of emotions that come out when people are trying to not only construct the tools of their liberation, but actually simulating some of these things for them so they can actually go through the experience in a control setting of what it would feel like to be abducted or be placed in a home invasion scenario or human trafficking and all these things, and how people figure out ways out, how to cut through this, how to open up handcuffs, how to hide things, how to construct things. It's very emotional for people. And for me too, it's triggering because I'm teaching something that I went through. And so it's fucking triggering for me.
Yeah.
So after everybody would thank me at the end of the day for some of the life-changing shit that I just showed them, now I was going back to my hotel room alone without anybody to talk to and no support network and drinking myself to sleep over and over again every weekend. It was a whole process.
And then how do you quit alcohol?
I find myself in another relationship with somebody, and it was chaotic, very chaotic. I wasn't ready for it, and it was just bad, you know. While I'm trying to deal with that, I'm also drinking heavily. I had some opportunities, started working, figuring things out. I was more known, so I got these insane opportunities, you know, to speak to Senate committees and be quoted for a bunch of news outlets and to be on other podcasts and working Hollywood as a advisor and just all these insane opportunities. And I'm just a walking zombie of alcoholism. I meet with David Ayer. Like I go to his office. Great guy, deep guy. Insane humanity in him. Serious though. And after a conversation, I said, I offered to give him like a bottle of tequila or something like that. He said, "No, I don't drink. I'm sober." And he says something along the lines of, from the looks of it, you probably need to visit that too. And it clicks in my mind. I get really drunk after a bad situation with the woman I was in a relationship with back then. And my daughter quietly comes over to me and says, "Are you sad, Dad?" I say, "Yeah." She's probably 5. And in the clearest voice coming out of a kid of that age, she said, I don't think you should drink anymore. I wasn't smart about it, though, from sobriety. Leaving alcohol is one of the only drugs that will kill you.
Right.
And knowing who I am and what I've done, I was going to take the fucking easy way out. So I called in a few favors, and I have some friends that had a giant cattle ranch somewhere. And they said, if you ever need to hide anywhere, Ed, you have a place here. But they weren't talking. They were probably talking about hiding from danger or some shit like that. I called them and say, "Hey, can I come out there? I need to isolate myself for a month." I said, "Sure, come out." Go out there, it's middle of fucking nowhere. It's a small community. I get there and I give them money because I don't want to freeload, so I give them some cash to take care of certain needs that they had in this community, and they appreciated the shit out of it. Thank you. Then he stood me up in front of everybody in the community and said, "Hey, this is Ed. He's an alcoholic. He's not to be, fed any alcohol, or nobody give him anything. If he asks for it, begs for it, don't give him shit." And he turned to me and said, "Ed, I've been through it myself. We got you. But we're not going to let you get away with shit here. So figure it out." Like, thank you. I locked myself into this old cabin. It was looking into the desert. Purple skies. But they weren't purple. There was hallucinations. I was going through withdrawals. Then it dawned on me that I realized that I've been 3 days without drinking, and I didn't take any medication. You're supposed to see a doctor. Your heart's fucking in danger. I didn't do shit. I remember falling asleep on the bed and waking up on a corner on the opposite side of the room in a ball. Vivid dreams. You can't escape from them anymore. Sobriety was alcoholism was a blanket for your subconscious. So you're not dealing with shit. It's almost like you're like a pause button. It's a pause button. You're not processing shit, and all of a sudden now you're processing everything from your 20s all the way to your late 30s. So my dreams were like waking life hallucinations and fevers. That's where I currently write these short form stories I call fever dreams, and that's where it comes from. These sweat-filled hell hallucinations of going through that sobriety process. I was too stuck into my own bullshit going through that I didn't realize that the community that I was in was watching out for me. I remember one day I tried to open the door and I couldn't open it. It's like, shit, they locked me in. Is one of the guys sleeping in a sleeping bag outside my door taking care of me. It took a month and I came back. Clear-headed. And when you talk about that, you think you're gonna, all I need to do is just get sober, and I'm there. Fuck no. It's like it's like going to an abandoned house that nobody's been living in there, and you see all the mail stuff in the mailbox and all the notifications of foreclosure and shit like that. You realize the extent of your absence and the damage that your absence has done to your life, health-wise. Relationships. I thought my relationship with my daughter was great. It wasn't. You know, my relationship with the women was horrible. So I had to fix it. Somebody gave me a tarot deck. And in the tarot deck there was an image of the hanged man. And that struck back to my first gig working, cutting people off bridges. And I realized that I was the guy hanging on the bridge. I was precariously hanging from that bridge, hoping that my mother would look at me and rescue me, or hoping that some woman would come into my life and do that for me, or if I rescue somebody of their own shit, they'll treat me the same, because I'm a child of abandonment. So for the longest period, I thought that my alcoholism and all that shit was related to my PTSD and some of the shit that I went through when I was working. It's like I went through a lot, horrible shit. But I thought that was the origin. And then it just dawned, everything just started clicking, and I figured it was because of my brother dying and basically my security being taken away from me at 13. That just made me into this feral survivalist that was capable of withstanding some shit that other people couldn't. That was my superpower. Abandonment.
Yeah. Being able to withstand things is not always a good thing.
Yeah, but that's the only way I thought to bring value to me. That's the only thing that I thought was a value about that I could give people.
But your toughness can almost be counterintuitive in a sense. Like you see it in boxing or fighting. Having a good chin can kind of be dangerous.
Yeah,
you take way more damage. You take way more punches because you can withstand it.
I took all of the damage.
What motivated you in the time when you were on the ranch getting sober?
My daughter.
Thinking of her.
Yeah. It dawned on me that I'm painfully struggling with abandonment, and I'm walking towards the same destiny. I'm going to repeat history. While I was there, I was reading a bunch of stuff that friends would send me, and I learned about generational curses. And it dawned on me. I had this moment of enlightenment. I couldn't reconcile my mother being so amazing and so beautiful and such a powerful force in my life, and then leaving. And then I started thinking about it. My mom didn't have a father in her life. She grew up in a home that's pretty bad conditions. One of her sisters was raped because no father figure. Perfect victims. She raised her two sisters since she was 12 or some shit like that. No father figure in her life. And I never understood why my mom was such a badass, or why she was so powerful and masculine in a way around me, and what the lessons were that she was trying to provide me. When she would be called to places to inject somebody or to deal with some shit, I would hold a flashlight for her. Even though I was scared and nervous, she would hold me steady. She would explain to me why that was important. She was preparing me to be the father that she didn't have, so that her granddaughter could enjoy that. And I was going to fuck it up. So I had to stop.
Did you have photos of her?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a single one. Still have it. I was carrying around moleskin notebooks because I have severe ADHD because of my trauma. So I have to write everything down. And in that notebook, she's always there. That's it put me on a path. Sobriety is the start. It's not the ending. I thought it was hey, this is going to be the conclusion. happy ending, balloons at the end. I did it. Fuck no. First year of sobriety, clarity. And then you see the extent of the damage.
Yeah.
I made a promise for myself that when I would turn 41, that I would be in a better place. That was August. I went through 2 years of intense therapy, post-traumatic, family, parenting. I educated myself. I went to a few processes of trying to figure things out. I went through a spiritual path. You know, I rediscovered that about me, my faith.
What's your perspective on God now?
Well, he's not a dude. For me, I think I rediscovered my spirituality through the Virgin of Guadalupe, you know, what she represents. A mother, source. I also rediscovered the veneration of the Holy Death and Santa Muerte, which was also always in the background for us, even in work. A lot of the people that I work with were protected by this spiritual underground practice of Santa Muerte, which a lot of people think it's like a cartel faith or religion. It's always been there. It's a faith of the marginalized, the hopeless, and the lost. Like, who better to befriend than death if you're in that environment? So I rediscovered both of those practices. For me, it was like a focal point, you know. One of the hazing rituals they did on us when we were going through training, they did a mock burial on us. They would make us dig our own graves and they would put us in the ground for a night. And if we freaked out, you know, they would, you know, we wouldn't be strong enough mentally. And there was Santa Muerte stuff around it, you know. There was a lady there who was a priestess, Santa Muerte priestess. And she introduced us to the whole concept of death and life, you know, like as a warfare thing, like a spiritual warfare thing. And one of the first secrets that you were given when you were unburied, because you were buried overnight, you have to, it's not deep, it's like just dirt over your box, you know, but it's still powerful. She gives you a few secrets when you get dug up. And one of them is you're already dead. Like that's your grave, you're already dead. And I remember hearing that one. It's like, huh. Yeah, it's time's a construct. It's always now. You're being born, you're suffering, and you're dying all at the same. It's all now.
How do you interpret that?
Everything is essential. I had to go through the shit that I went through to be where I am now. I had to go through the trauma, the pain, the suffering, the mistakes, the failed marriage, the alcoholism, all of that, to be able to receive an email from a dude that just got done through his first year of sobriety and saved his marriage and is now trying to send me a package of cookies from his wife because I saved his marriage from him reading my experience and the stuff that I share. It had to be me. I had to go through it. It's always now. I'm the kid going into the recruiting office. I'm the kid breaking into the pool area of this cartel house that was taken over at 14, breaking in and being celebrated because I broke a padlock, skateboarding that pool. It's me. I'm me when my mother looked at me disappointed that I wasn't my brother showing up to the house. That was me waking up in that cabin, going through sobriety. Like, all of them were essential. All of them. If I change one of them, I'm not here just speaking to you, you know?
Can you appreciate every experience? Can you love every experience?
That's what I'm learning to do now. Reconnecting with people from that past. You know, Conejo was an example of it, you know? He was an enemy.
Yeah.
Now he had a need and he called me and I showed up for him. My daughter is enjoying something that my mother never had. And I think at least on that end that the curse is over. I'm the first alcohol sober member of my family in God knows how many generations.
It's crazy, huh?
It is mind-blowing. And then that's another curse. And I call them generational curses because that's like, it's not supernatural. It's the way you think about it. Basically, it's a pattern of behaviors that repeats itself over and over, and it's stopping with me.
These epigenetics are real, though.
Oh, yeah.
There is a genetic predisposition to different types of coping.
Yeah.
And different types of trauma can be inherited. It seems like, I don't know, there's the science, I guess, is still out on it. But intuitively, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's there. It's always there. But there's also intention and effort. You can, we're not a victim to our genetics. Yes, we are predisposed and our environment gives us the rest, right? So I was in an environment where alcoholism and drinking alcohol was celebrated to see how much you could drink the other dude under the table,
Mm-hmm.
And I bought into it until you realize how much it's taken from you and the expense of it. And a small little girl tells you not to do it anymore, or a man who you respect and who's been through his own process, coming out of the other end of it, turning back to you who are just about to walk into it, tells you probably need to look at sobriety. I think, and again, I don't play into the victim aspect of it. And yeah, like I did all this shit and it was horrible, and I went through all this process, and I'm currently at the end of this hanged man period that I put myself through as far as trying to get better and heal from all of that stuff. A few of the lies that were told to me by therapists that I would share, and like these people seeing this who are on the fence about going through it themselves need to know. There is no getting back to normal. That's a lie. There's no normal. It's a construct. It's a tooth fairy. It's Santa Claus. It's the Easter Bunny. There is no normal. Normal is a fluid concept. It changes constantly. There is taking responsibility for yourself. But there's no normal. There's no getting back to normal. So a lot of people torture themselves because they want to get back to normal. Normal is being static. Doesn't exist. Life is movement. Death is stillness. So people seeking normal usually are walking into a grave. There is no normal. They're destined for tragedy because things change. Another lie that was told to me is you're gonna get better. What is better? What is better? If you can't explain to yourself what better is, you're walking nowhere. So you need to sit with yourself and define to yourself what would be better. How can you be better? What can you better in your life? At the end of this process of healing and work, I got off alcohol. I went through years of therapy. I fixed relationships. I forgave my father for some things. I forgave myself for a lot of things. I did all that. No ayahuasca. None of that shit. Some of mushrooms a little bit. They helped. Microdosing helped a little bit, but escaping reality, none of that. None of that. It was completely being present, sober, and with myself, honestly. The last lie I was told is you will find yourself clear all these things and you will be happy. Nah, that's not it. I found myself at 41 celebrating a birthday on my own at a house somewhere. In the past, that would have killed me as far as the depression and the sadness of it. I'm alone. 40th birthday. Let me drink myself to the death, or let me cry about it, I guess. I was at peace with myself. I realized that the gift at the end is that, hey, I love myself. I'm taking vitamins. You know, I'm drinking a shit ton of water. I'm allowing friends to show up for me, and I'm showing up for them. Yeah, the damage is there, but I'm wearing it. I'm not hiding it anymore. And I'm trying to do something with it now. I just spent 2 days here showing a bunch of people how to release themselves from restraints if they get into an abduction scenario or something like that. And one of the things I tell them during this class, and it's funny, like how it all relates to my actual experience in life. All restraints are temporary. Is the first thing I tell them. They're like, what do you mean, man? All restraints are temporary. They're either taken off by yourself, if you learn how, if you take the responsibility, if you practice, if you hone your craft. They're taken off by somebody else because you're broken, because you shit your pants, because they own you now and they're not afraid of you, so those restraints come off because you're broken. Or your body rots away and falls apart around your restraints. And I found a few people burned in fields that still had their handcuffs around their bones. And when you would move them, their bones would turn to dust around the handcuffs. So those are the three options. Which are you going to take?
Yeah.
And most people take that first one. It's a call. It's a call to action. And a lot of us that go through shit like that want somebody to come and save us. And we don't realize that all of our prayers that we have, like, save me, God, save me, God, save me, God. He is saving you. He's giving you a shit ton of life lessons, struggle, pain, tragedy, horror, humanity, happiness, moments of healing, struggle, to turn you into exactly who you wanted to save you. You, after that, that's who you wanted to save you. It's not going to be anybody else. It's you. It's always you.
Have you picked up all the pieces now as we sit here today?
Yeah. Yeah.
You feel content with the work that you've done in your own personal life?
I feel like I'm ready for what the next chapter is. My daughter pulled a tarot card for me. And again, she's not a card reader. She's just somebody that I think is the universe speaking to me directly sometimes. And I had the Hangman card next to my bed every night and every day when I was going through this process of transformation and healing. And it would, in my bedroom, it was always stuck. Like when I would wake up, that's the first thing I would see. When I turned 41, I took it down, finally. And I told my daughter, pull one. You know what she pulled? The Fool. The Fool in tarot is the beginning. So I'm back at the beginning. So I'm ready to risk again, I guess. So I'm ready to I'm ready to make mistakes again. I'm ready to be a fool. Wow, that's been the process right now. And it's a lonely one. There's nobody here for it. There's no celebration at the end, you know. But it's still great. No, I couldn't trade it for the world.
Do you wish you had gotten sober sooner?
Yeah, I missed out on a lot.
Yeah,
I missed out on a lot. I missed out on being there for people that needed me to deal with grief. I missed out on being there for my ex-wife. I missed out on being there for my daughter. I missed out on a lot of shit, so I need to make that back. You know? And I have the opportunity because I didn't die. I wasn't killed. I survived somehow. So I'm like, I need to do something with it. I got a chance. I got people that people don't realize. I was eating ramen every day, drinking myself to sleep somewhere. I had nothing, and all of a sudden I find myself in New York with some beautiful friends. They're walking me over to eat pizza at Joe's in the middle of the night while it's raining. And a bunch of people just got done learning about how to liberate themselves from restraints with me over the weekends. And now I'm here with you. The ride of it has been, ayahuasca can go suck it. This is the most powerful hallucinogen in the world, life itself. A lot of people struggle with it. A lot of people want to leave it. A lot of people just stay with the pain aspect of it. Yeah, but if you just stay with it, man, you'll come out the other end.
It's the greatest trip you'll ever take.
Wild. It's a wild one, man. It's a wild one.
You brought up ayahuasca. People offered it to you? Have they?
Yeah. I had everybody like, hey, you should try this. You should try ayahuasca. You should try this hallucinogen. You should try toad. All of it, I tried some of it and I experimented with some of it. Try to help myself out with some of it. Microdosing helped out of everything.
In what way?
It's the best antidepressant that I've taken that is outside of pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm.
It basically cut down my depressive cycles while I was going through my process. It helped out with that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Do you meditate?
Yeah, every day.
How long?
In the morning, I do a physical workout routine that I've been going through for the past a few months. But it's usually in the morning I meditate 1 hour at least, if I can, if not 30 minutes. And at night, another 30 minutes or an hour.
That's great. Do you ever go back to Tijuana?
Yeah.
You're there frequently?
Yeah. It's safe. There's nobody there left alive that gives a shit about any of the shit that happened, And the ones that are there, we realize that all of it was bullshit and we're friends now. Some of them. I'm not a cop anymore. I hate the government in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
I was legit betrayed by the whole system, and I am disgusted with it. But I still love the people of Mexico. These are my people. But I'm invested in the U.S. as well, because these are also my people, because my daughter's an American, and she's getting to have both of these experiences of life as far as a culture. I do go back to Tijuana. Actually, I started my own podcast, and a big reason I did was to bring people to Tijuana. I film it out in Tijuana. So like, if you're afraid to go to Tijuana, I don't want to have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
So, and also just to bring attention to the city, I take guests, go down there. I'll take them to get some tacos and experience a little bit of Tijuana, the one I know, and then we'll have conversations. Conejo was there. My Lieutenant Colonel Lizola was on there. Navy SEAL guy who runs a program called Heroes for Horses, which is about PTSD and coming back from war. Josh Burnett, legendary MMA guy, was on there as well, and he had his own war and demons he fought. Everybody on there has some sort of life journey thing that I've learned from or that I was inspired by that I want to share with people. And that's basically therapy sessions. That's what I do on those with those conversations. And the reason why they're in Tijuana is that this was a place that was instrumental in turning me into who I am now.
Mm-hmm. For better, for worse.
For better, for worse. And it has its issues. And yes, there's some safety stuff there, but it's a place where most of the people buying new housing are from California and Americans.
Mm-hmm.
It is a place that's being gentrified right now by this influence. Locals are are angry that rents are going up so much because they're gentrifying it. And I'm trying to bring just people back, I guess, to see it as a place, a viable place for them to be able to live in.
Do you talk with your brother much?
No, not that much.
No.
Like we're brothers and we're there for each other a lot, but he hasn't gone through this,
Mm-hmm.
We don't have that perspective because he's okay. He got married, he has kids, he has a house. He's never had to leave alcohol. It's fine. He can manage it. He's stable. I'm the only idiot that went into this line of work and basically faced it, all of it.
And do you talk with your dad much?
I didn't for a long while. He was we didn't have common ground, I learned alcoholism from him. And I didn't blame him about it, but there was a coldness about it that I just struggled with. When I got sober, he would offer me beers, stuff like that, because culture. So I had some ill will against him, I guess. When I was a younger kid, his brother beat him unconscious in front of me once. Pushed my mom, and I felt unsafe, So I had an issue with that. Later on in life, he told me he almost had COVID when COVID epidemic hit. I did some chasing board and shit to make a hospital setting at the house in Baja to try and figure out life. Me and my brother kept him alive. The doctor told us to say goodbye 3 times, and he survived. My dad did all the vices except smoking. He never smoked. That saved him probably.
Wow.
I had a moment with him. And my dad is diabetic. He's older. He's late 70s. So he's not healthy, After he survived COVID, he started experiencing severe pains. And this time, I know about California. I know marijuana now, so I give him some gummies and get him a joint. It's like, take these for your pain. So my dad's high as shit in the garden with me. And he's like, I said, Dad, can I ask you something? I said, yeah. Why didn't you do anything when my uncle beat you in front of me? In my mind, I was like, I'm going to confront him about it. And he's like, oh. I never told you, did I? And I was like, what, Dad? What could you possibly tell me? What could you possibly tell me? It's going to change anything. When he was a kid, he was friends with a dude. And they would have this thing where they would, sneak up on each other and put each other in headlocks when they were kids. Like, hey. And his best friend did that to him once at a bar, and he knocked him back, and he hit his head on the ground. And he lost the use of his motor functions and died later on from the injuries. It was an accident, freak accident. And he became pacifist afterward. Now who do I blame?
Right. Well, you once saw a moment of weakness.
Now he's a juggernaut.
And so now it's a moment of strength. How
and
interesting.
also now it's like, who do I blame? Who do I blame for my ultra-violent behavior for years because I didn't feel safe?
Mm-hmm.
And I became so proficient at finding safety and arming myself with knowledge and weaponizing this and that I'm now hired by the federal government sometimes to train their people on these things. This is the monster that was created by this insecurity, and now this person that I thought was to blame is releasing that from him. And I was like, now, how it's my responsibility. It was me. It was always me.
Do you still feel unsafe?
No. Now I feel responsible.
Mm-hmm.
I feel responsible for the people that are with me. I feel responsible for my daughter. I feel responsible for my employees. I have a company. We have employees. I feel responsible for them. We run a program called Fighter's Kitchen. There's a Muay Thai gym in Tulum, run by a guy named Eddie Farrell, legendary Thai boxer that I interviewed for the podcast. He's also a wonderful human being, beautiful man. As far as his humanity is great. There's a bunch of marginalized community kids that go to this gym, and we started a program to feed them. So we give them 2 meals a day as they go through their dream of being fighters. That's my responsibility now. I have to keep that going.
Mm.
So I'm not afraid of anything now other than letting them down. That's my fear.
Yeah.
You know, do whatever you want of me, but no, my responsibility is outside of me. Yeah.
Another thing that's interesting about you, just in chatting with you, is that you wear a lot of your stories. You know, like you had mentioned, I think, in a different conversation, you know, you mentioned your nose.
Yeah.
And you say, yeah, I wear this. This is a sign of what I've been through.
Yeah. I mean, who am I to tell you how to fight through somebody trying to grab you and put you in a van if I'm not missing teeth?
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't have a broken nose?
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned your finger as well.
Yeah. Fingertips gone.
What happened with your hand?
A lot of things. Several scars. Somebody tried to swing a machete at me. Right there. I tried to write with my left hand at school, and a nun did that to me. I mean, this is a roadmap of my life. That fingertip got chopped off by a door because I was stupid, drunk, and I was trying to be responsible for somebody, and my hand got in a door and chopped off my finger. Funny enough, my trigger finger.
Oh, wow.
So probably somebody doesn't want me to pull a trigger anymore, so that's gone now. It's pretty poetic, I would say, that specific finger was the one that got chopped off. Yeah, so for me, you know, I spent a long time trying to be normal, to hide that. Like, hey, what do you want? Let's be normal, because I don't want to be treated like a weirdo, you know, differently. Even with the way I speak English without an accent because I don't want to be treated differently.
Blend in. Push down the authenticity.
Yeah.
Conform.
Yeah, I could switch it if you want. I can start speaking like this and start talking about Tijuana and about los tacos que están bien buenos ahí. I could speak like that, but I don't want to be treated differently because I know I have to earn my space as an American, so I have to figure out how to work on it. But again, it's a process. When I used to hide it, but now I realize, oh, this is what makes me me. Yeah, this is what makes me me. I shouldn't hide it. This is what makes me me. I wear it. And when I tell people like, hey, this is probably a good idea. You need to get into combatives and to learn how to box, learn how to grapple with people, go into jiu-jitsu. You don't like jiu-jitsu? That means you should probably do it more. You don't like boxing? Yeah, probably do it a lot. Why? If you don't know how to duck, you'll get one of these.
Yeah.
I had a moment like right at the end of my therapy session, like my process that I had for myself. I went into this bathroom. I think I was somewhere in Texas. I went to this bathroom at a restaurant, and it had graffiti all over the bathroom. And somebody wrote, "A person of love has to be a destroyer. That is the essence of the universe." In a fucking bathroom. And I was like, holy shit, it's true. I always had this perception that somebody's good has to be like fucking good, like a saint. Or somebody's bad has to be bad on this end. And no, you have to have both. You have to have, somebody has to have both. So if you love your family, if you love your community, if you love somebody, you have to be able to smash somebody's head in for that person with a rock.
Yeah. I forget. I think it might have been Jordan Peterson that had said it, but nobility requires violence.
Yeah.
If you're not able to be violent, you're not noble. Yeah. You're just weak.
Yep.
But in order to be a power, if you're not hurting someone because you can't, there's no victory there. There's nothing.
It's not. There's no virtue there.
Yeah, there's nothing virtuous.
No, you have to
be able to, and then
and keep that shit in check.
Yeah.
That's what I teach people. I teach them to be capable and responsible for their shit, if I can. The whole aspect of that destroyer aspect of it. That's why I wear these. Basically, two depictions of La Virgen de Guadalupe and La Santa Muerte, death and life. Usually carry around also these, a gold coin and a silver coin. Silver dime and a gold peso. one to bribe the devil and one for the boat, man. You know, I try and I figure that in my life I've been either one extreme or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when you find true peace, you're at peace with all of them. Like your destroyer side or your destroyer period, and also your creating period. You have to have both. Like anybody that's worth anything has gone through both that I've talked to.
And when you die, what do you think your legacy will be now?
A cluttered grave, hopefully. That's what I'm aiming for. Man, I think I've already experienced in life a lot of the things that I would have wanted, you know, to experience after I died. You know, somebody wrote a folk song about me. I didn't pay him. I didn't know him. They just did it automatically, and that was a beautiful gift from the universe. And also, as a Mexican, qué orgullo. Right? I've helped out a bunch of people, and people have reached out and thanked me. In the past, I never answered the phone. I never answered emails. I never responded to DMs that were helpful, that were giving me thanks about shit, because I felt so guilty about where all this experience came from and the horrible shit that I had to do. But I'm at peace with both those sides now. So I think where I would want to end up is just a cluttered grave somewhere with a bunch of random shit left on there. You know, that's a good place to end.
Well, I'm excited to see the next chapter and the new beginning.
The Fool.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to get to the Fool. That's a good place to be. Ready for the next mistake.
Well, Ed, thank you so much for sharing your stories with me. I really appreciate it, brother.
Thank you for the space and the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it again in a year or so.
Ah, yeah.
And see what progress has been made.
The Fool's update. I'm down.
I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you.